Chapter 4:15. Zhang Jiming, who was slapped hard by the tall officer, was stunned. What did he mean by she was an advanced special forces soldier? What did he mean by their station chief's status could not be compared to hers? After the tall officer slapped Zhang Jiming with a grim face, he suddenly broke into a grin and walked to Yunjian. He was spouting nonsense just now. Don't take it to heart. We, the police, will investigate this matter thoroughly and deal with it fairly and justly. Don't worry. The tall officer's words shocked everyone present. Especially Zhang Jiming. Zhang Jiming dared to say that because he had bribed most of the officers in Xinjiang town's police station. Zhang Jiming did not expect everything to change once Yunjian appeared. Lu Fian and her mother were dumbfounded when they heard the tall officer's words. Listening to the tall policeman's words, it seemed that the police station was going to reopen the case. After all, the root cause of the incident was the school's principal who wanted to invite Lu Fian's father to the school for help. According to the law, the principal had to bear the corresponding legal responsibility as well. As for teacher Su, who knocked into Lu Fian's father and caused the bamboo pole to fall from the third floor, he was also the main person responsible for the incident. As long as the police station was willing to investigate the matter thoroughly, it meant that Lu Fian's father's sentence could be reduced. This news was probably the best outcome that Lu Fian and her mother could imagine for something like this to happen. After all, it was a fact that Lu Fian's father had accidentally killed someone. What? What about what you promised me? Zhang Jiming was dumbfounded. How much did he bribe the police station? The reason he gave the money back then was only to save his son from dying in vain. In the end, Yunjian popped out of nowhere and ruined everything. Promise? What did we promise you? I'm warning you, if you or your father dare lay a hand on the mother and daughter again, the police station will arrest you. Even if the tall officer wanted to flatter Yunjian, he was going to go all the way. You. Zhang Jiming glared at them and glared at Yunjian, leaving Yunjian with a message, I'll remember you. Humph, don't let me see you in Longmen City next time or I'll make you suffer. He was the boss of a small business. He was still in the midst of negotiations and was so close to collaborating with new crews. To Zhang Jiming, Yunjian was a child from a poor family. Zhang Jiming dared not make a fuss in the police station, so he left with his grandfather and the rest of them. In spite of that, Zhang Jiming thought Yunjian's eyes. Of course, she did not care about that at all. When Yunjian revealed her identity as an advanced special forces soldier, she wanted the police to seek justice for Father Lu. It was already noon when she came out of the police station again. Yunjian finally entered the Lu family's house. In order to thank her, Mother Lu cooked a table full of dishes. It was only then that Yunjian took out 10,000 yuan from her backpack and the envelope Qin Yiru gave her and passed it to her mother. Yunjian's mother refused to accept it at first, saying that she was already grateful for Yunjian's help. How could she accept Yunjian's money? Moreover, it was 12,000 yuan. It was a sum of money even in modern times, what more in the 98s. However, the Lu family was definitely short of money after what had happened. In the end, Yunjian said that the money was a loan to them and that Lu Fian could work for her when she grew up. Chapter 4:16. Yunjian stayed in Xinjiang town for the entire morning and afternoon, returning to Longmen City after having lunch at Lu Fian's house. The police had decided to investigate Lu Fian's father's case, so it would not be as unfair as before. Before she left, she told Lu Fian and her mother to look for her in Longmen City if the police did not reinvestigate the matter as they had said or if Zhang Qin's grandfather acted like he did in the past. Yunjian even gave them her current address. Lu Fian bade farewell to Yunjian with tears in her eyes, reluctance and gratitude evident in her eyes. You don't have to send me off. I'll visit your house during the Lunar New Year, Yunjian said with a smile, patting the back of Lu Fian's hand. Lu Fian nodded. Lu Fian and her mother did not ask Yunjian how she became an advanced special forces soldier. It was not that they did not care, but they knew how to respect Yunjian's own thoughts. There were things that Yunjian would say if she wanted to. It was already evening when they returned to Longmen City. Qin Yiru asked about the Lu family's recent situation in a concerned tone after she came back from work, and Yun Jian told her everything. There were only Qin Yiru, Yun Jian, and Xiao Yunju at home during dinner. Yun Yi was out with her classmates, so she was not at home. She had been busy and was rarely at home. Ding dong. The doorbell rang. Qin Yiru stood up to open the door but was stopped by Yun Jian. "Mom, continue eating. I'll go open the door." Yun Jian stood up and shoved her hands into her pockets to go to the door. Since no one opened the door, the doorbell seemed to ring more urgently. The person outside the door seemed to be looking for something urgent. Yun Jian was already walking to the door. With a creak, Yun Jian stood at the door and opened it. Outside the door, a figure was anxiously pacing back and forth. Once the girls saw Yun Jian, she rushed to her and said hastily, "Sister Jian. Not good. Boss was shot, and his life is in danger." This person was none other than Su Zetian's subordinate, Duan Lei. Duan Lei was a steady person, but at this moment, he lost his sense of heaviness. Yun Jian immediately knew that something must have happened to the Su Zetian that Duan Lei had mentioned. Although Yun Jian had taken over Dragon Head Gang and changed it to Falcon Hall, the gang members were used to calling her Sister Jian, while Su Zetian was still addressed as boss. Yun Jian never cared about these things. "Let's talk outside." Duan Lei's voice was very loud. Yun Jian was afraid that Qin Yiru, who was in the room, would hear him, so she turned around. In spite of it, Qin Yiru had already heard the commotion. She stood up and walked over, asking, "Xiao Jian, what's going on? Who's in danger?" Yun Jian had Duan Lei leave the house first before she turned to lie to Qin Yiru. "Mom, it's something in the military. I'll go take a look and see if I can help. Don't worry." After that, Yun Jian hurried out of the house after Qin Yiru agreed. Qin Yiru did not ask further when she heard that it was something in the military. After Yun Jian left the house, she went to Falcon Hall's headquarters side by side with Duan Lei. What exactly happened? Yun Jian went straight to the point. As they walked, Duan Lei explained, but his slightly panting voice sounded very anxious. Boss was having a meeting with the higher-ups in the gang when a sniper sniped him from afar. It was so close. Boss would have died on the spot. Chapter 417. Yun Jian knew that Duan Lei and the gang were Su Zetian's buddies. Back then, it was Su Zetian who had led them to establish Dragon Head Gang. Of course, their friendship was greater than the sky. "Do you know who did it?" Yun Jian pressed her lips together. She did not look flustered, merely walking briskly to Falcon Hall's headquarters with Duan Lei. "I have my suspicions but I'm not sure," Duan Lei said, calming down. Duan Lei had run over earlier, but once he reached Yun Jian, he suppressed his fear. It was as if as long as Yun Jian was around, everything was not a problem and could be solved. "Who is it?" Yun Jian asked. "Flying Passage," Duan Lei uttered those 3 words. Yun Jian nodded slightly, a sharp glint flashing in her expressionless eyes. If she remembered correctly, Flying Passage was a gang in Taizhou City, the closest to Longmen City. Furthermore, the Sky Bridge Gang and Falcon Hall had been having a territorial dispute in recent days. There were many cities near Longmen City. Su Linbua, whom they met at the National Mafia Tea Party, was the mafia boss of Yuzhou City, which was near Longmen City. As for the recent dispute between Flying Passage and Falcon Hall, it originated from Flying Passage. For some reason, Flying Passage insisted that a downtown area in Longmen City was actually under Flying Passage's jurisdiction. Naturally, Falcon Hall would not give up their territory, which was clearly theirs. Hence, a conflict had arisen between them recently. Su Zetian had been shot by a sniper when he was having a meeting with the higher-ups today to discuss how to deal with Flying Passage. He was still in the emergency room, unconscious. Therefore, Duan Lei guessed that it was Flying Passage who did it. With that in mind, Yun Jian and Duan Lei came to Falcon Hall's headquarters. According to Duan Lei, they had hired a professional doctor to remove the bullet for Su Zetian. However, removing the bullet in Falcon Hall's headquarters was not as well equipped as a hospital, so the risk factor was much higher. There was a reason why Su Zetian had not gone to the hospital yet. Usually, gangsters would not go to the hospital for no reason. Especially someone like Su Zetian, who had been shot, couldn't go to the hospital. Because how could an ordinary person get shot? Moreover, Z country prohibited ordinary people from carrying firearms. Once discovered, they would be severely punished. If he sent Su Zetian to the hospital, he would probably be arrested soon. If a regular gangster was caught, he could still find someone to bail him out. Even the police station could turn a blind eye to it. But if they were discovered in the hospital, it would be troublesome. Therefore, when gangsters got shot, they would rather die than go to the hospital for the sake of their brothers in the gang. As they spoke, Yun Jian and Duan Lei arrived at Falcon Hall's headquarters. A row of higher-ups stood in the main hall of Falcon Hall's headquarters. At this moment, all of them had ashen faces, anxious and anxious. Sister Jian's here. At this moment, someone saw Yun Jian and Duan Lei walking in from outside the door. He seemed to have found support in an instant and shouted. Yun Jian stepped in and glanced around before pressing her lips together and looking down at the crowd. Where's Su Zetian? Sister Jian, he's in the room. The doctor is still removing the bullet. The room can't be too stuffy in case boss's wound gets infected, so we can only stand outside and wait, one of the higher-ups told Yun Jian hoarsely with swollen eyes. Chapter 418. Su Zetian was in the room now and the doctor was operating on him. When the doctor first saw Su Zetian's injury, he shook his head and sighed, I'll do my best. It was because of this that the higher-ups present were teary-eyed. Waiting was the longest. It was especially so when they did not know if Su Zetian could be saved. After all, he had fainted the moment he was shot. If the doctor had not come in time, Su Zetian would not have made it in his condition. Yun Jian shifted her gaze to the closed door of the room where Su Zetian was operating and strode toward it. Seeing that Yun Jian was about to open the door, the higher-up who said that Su Zetian was in the room stopped her quickly. Sister Jian, you can't go in. The doctor said that the air inside must be kept clean or it'll infect boss's wound. The higher-up spoke up out of concern for Su Zetian's injury. Yun Jian understood. Before Yun Jian could say anything, Duan Lei's voice came from behind. Sister Jian, we all know that you care about boss too, but all we can do now is wait. All of us hope that boss is safe and sound. As Duan Lei spoke, his voice grew hoarser. In the end, one could hear a hint of sobbing in his voice. Su Zetian's subordinates were loyal and devoted. Su Zetian himself didn't treat them as subordinates, but as his own brothers. Today, something like this happened to Su Zetian. This group of fearless men, who had relied on brute force to develop the Dragon Head gang to its current state, had their eyes red. They all lowered their heads, and no one spoke for a moment. Just as everyone was crestfallen and trembling in fear that bad news would come out of the room at any time, a melodious and light female voice rang out. I know medicine. When they first heard the voice, their hearts skipped a beat. In less than 3 seconds, they looked up abruptly, their bright eyes looking straight at the girl standing at the front. Sister Jian knew medicine? They were stupefied. Yun Jian watched their reaction with a smile and flipped her hair before looking at the group with pressed lips. What? You don't believe me? Yun Jian's voice sounded like a warning bell in everyone's hearts. Everyone's eyes turned to Yun Jian, color returning to their eyes in the blink of an eye. Duan Lei stood up immediately and nodded confidently, looking at Yun Jian. Sister Jian, we believe everything you say. Ever since Yun Jian's performance at the Mafia Tea Party had spread in the gang, everyone believed in one thing. Yun Jian was never one to speak empty words. Everything she said was reasonable. Looking at the sudden change in everyone's expression and the trust in their eyes, Yun Jian could not help feeling a jolt. She did not know when they had started trusting her. Duan Lei, go in with me. Everyone else, wait outside, Yun Jian told the rest after a glance at Duan Lei. With that, she pushed the door open and entered the room without hesitation. Duanlei did not know why Yunjian asked him to go in, but he followed her anyway. He closed the door after entering the room. Chapter 419. Inside the room. After Yunjian and Duanlei entered the room, they saw a long, flat table covered with white gauze. An unconscious person was lying on top of it. It was Su Zetian. The long table was obviously used as a temporary operating table. At that moment, countless surgical tools were placed beside the long table. A middle-aged man in a white coat was standing at the side, preparing for the operation. The operation had yet to begin. The middle-aged man in the white coat was called Su Zifan. Su Zifan was a doctor from a private hospital. His medical skills were quite good, and he would visit people to treat them. The former Dragon Head Gang, which was now Falcon Hall, would call Su Zifan whenever someone was injured. Therefore, Su Zifan could be considered half a private doctor of Falcon Hall. Seeing Yunjian and Duanlei coming in from outside, Su Zifan frowned. His hand, which was disinfecting the surgical tools, paused for a moment. "What are you doing here? Didn't I tell you to wait outside? No one is allowed to stand in the room. Otherwise, if the wound gets infected and something happens, I won't be responsible." Su Zifan frowned. He paused and said. Su Zifan had chased the group of high-ranking personnel out of the room to wait because of his words. Su Zifan did not know Yunjian. Naturally, he did not know that she was the current boss of Falcon Hall. "Get out of the way. I'll be the chief surgeon." Yunjian explained her purpose in a simple and clear manner. She did not say anything else. "You?" Su Zifan was taken aback. It was only then that he took a second look at Yunjian and was even more surprised. How old was this little girl? And she was the chief surgeon? Did she think that the operation was a joke? "You're the chief surgeon. Have you studied medicine? Are you still in high school?" "Little girl." Su Zifan felt that he was the only doctor present, so his tone was rather arrogant. Moreover, Su Zifan's medical skills were indeed good. Many hospitals had offered him high salaries to work in their hospitals, but he had rejected them all. In addition, as long as it was a patient, they would naturally need his help. Su Zifan had never met any opponents, so he usually carried a sense of arrogance in his bones. "Su Zifan, take a good look at who is standing in front of you. Be careful that I don't kill you for speaking rudely." Duanlei glared at Su Zifan and spoke viciously. Before this, Su Zifan was the only doctor here, so Duanlei would go easy on him. It was different now. Sister Jian knew medicine as well. Su Zifan was dumbfounded. He didn't expect Duanlei to speak to him in such a tone. "After you, Sister Jian." Duanlei saw that Su Zifan had restrained himself and did not waste any more time. He turned to look at Yunjian and said. Yunjian walked over. "Sister Jian?" Could the person whom Duanlei, a high-ranking member of Falcon Hall, address as Sis be the young new boss of Falcon Hall that was rumored to be? Su Zifan was dumbfounded for a moment. Only then did he realize how much hatred his words had caused. His whole body shivered as he stood there. Su Zifan didn't even dare to move. She was the boss of Falcon Hall. It meant that it was not impossible for Yunjian to kill Su Zifan on the spot in a fit of rage. While Su Zifan was still in a daze, Yunjian had already come to the long table and put on the surgical gown and sterile gloves that Su Zifan had brought for her. "You'll be my assistant." Yunjian suddenly turned to look at Su Zifan. She did not blame him for his rudeness, nor did she say anything else. Not expecting Yunjian to say that, Su Zifan was stunned again before he nodded. "Oh." Chapter 420. While Su Zifan was still in a daze, Yunjian had already walked to Su Zetian's side. Su Zifan's medical skills were indeed brilliant. The local disinfection of the area where Su Zetian was shot had already been arranged properly. Su Zetian was shot in the back, and the muzzle was near his heart. Fortunately, when the bullet entered his heart, his beating heart had just contracted, so the bullet did not directly penetrate his heart. At least for now, Su Zetian still had a chance to live. If Su Zetian died on the spot, then even Yun Jian would not be able to save him. Scalpel. Yun Jian extended her hand to where Su Zifan was. Ah. Su Zifan was dumbfounded. Scalpel. Yun Jian repeated patiently. In fact, if Su Zifan was not the only one present who knew medicine, Yun Jian would not have asked him to be her assistant. After all, this was a surgery near the heart. If she was not careful, Su Zetian would die on the spot. It was very risky to complete the surgery by herself, so in this case, Yun Jian had to choose Su Zifan as her temporary assistant. Su Zifan was still in a daze, but when Yun Jian called him, he handed over the scalpel. In fact, Su Zifan was still somewhat against Yun Jian performing the surgery. He always believed in his own judgment. This little girl, could she really be the chief surgeon? As for why Su Zifan did not stop her, it was because he had already determined that Yun Jian was the boss of Falcon Hall. What a joke, how could he stop the boss of Falcon Hall from doing what she wanted to do? Unless he did not want his life anymore. When Yun Jian took the scalpel and reached for Su Zetian's wound, Su Zifan almost cried out in surprise. Who would perform surgery like this? If Yun Jian's scalpel cut the artery, Su Zetian would definitely die on the spot. In the end, Su Zifan could not help but shout out due to his doctor's ethics, no, if you cut the artery directly, it will lead to massive bleeding and death. Su Zifan widened his eyes at the same time. He saw Yun Jian's outstretched hand as if she was going to cut Su Zetian's pulse in the back. He was so scared that he screamed to stop her. Shut up. The girl did not turn around. Her mouth was covered by a mask, so her light and dignified voice came out from under the mask. Su Zifan shuddered. At this moment, Yun Jian had already used the scalpel to cut the artery. Hemostatic forceps. Yun Jian put down the scalpel and reached out her hand without turning her head. Su Zifan trembled as he placed the forceps in Yun Jian's hand. With nimble hands, Yun Jian stopped the blood from flowing out of Su Zetian's artery as quickly as she could. The following surgery, the surgery, was not so difficult. However, Su's breathing gradually, blood zest. Yun Jian's surgical method was different from that of a regular chief surgeon. Every time she made a cut, it was a Achilles heel, but she was always able to stitch it up in time. Su was. Su Zifan, on the other hand, was stupefied. His mouth was wide open, forming an O shape. He felt like he had seen Yun Jian's operation before. The surgery's done. He's fine now. They can come in for a visit but don't get too close. Yun Jian turned to tell Duan Lei, who was equally dumbfounded as she pulled her mask halfway down. Amen. Duan Lei recovered from his shock after a long time and turned to open the door. Soon, the higher-ups outside came in. Boss is fine? That's great. Sister Jian is amazing. The group of people exclaimed as if they had breathed a sigh of relief. Die. Hand of the Grim Reaper. At this moment, a gentle and weak voice was heard. The one who spoke was Su Zifan, who was so dumb that he had lost his intuition. What? Someone asked in surprise when the group noticed Su Zifan, who was standing not far away from Su Zetian. Chapter 421. Yun Jian was taken aback when she heard from others that she was given this title by people in the medical field when she was practicing medicine in her past life. Grim Reaper's Hand was the title she received when she disguised herself as a mature woman during a mission and approached an assassination mission. She was renowned in the medical field. She did not expect that someone in Country Z would recognize her disguise in her past life. Of course, Su Zifan did not recognize Yun Jian based on her appearance but Yun Jian's technique. When he was studying medicine in Country M, he was fortunate enough to watch the video recording of the woman known as Grim Reaper's Hand's surgery from his master. It was a miracle in the medical field. Su Zifan's words stunned everyone present, especially Duan Lei, who had witnessed Yun Jian's surgery. He was so emotional that he could not express it with words. Everyone was looking at Yun Jian with probing gazes, as if waiting for Yun Jian's reply. Yun Jian suddenly waved her hand and pressed her lips into a smile. It's purely a coincidence. The higher-ups did not doubt Yun Jian's words. Su Zifan, on the other hand, was frowning hard as he looked at Yun Jian, unable to calm himself down. Others might not know, but he had witnessed the surgery of the woman known as Grim Reaper's hand with his own eyes. If Yun Jian and the woman's surgical technique were to be 100% identical, then they were 90% similar. Other than their looks, Yun Jian and the woman were practically carved from the same mold. I'll leave Su Zitian's post-surgery care to you, Yun Jian said after a brief moment of squinting at Su Zifan. Ah, me? Su Zifan was taken aback. Yun Jian did not give Su Zifan a chance to reject as she turned to leave with a press of her lips. Sister Jian, where are you going? Duan Lei and the others could not help asking Yun Jian when they saw her leaving. Flying Passage dared to send a sniper to hurt my man. Of course, I should give them a big gift in return. As Yun Jian spoke, a sharp, murderous glint flashed in her eyes. As expected, Sister Jian would not abandon Falcon Hall and leave them alone. Everyone was seething with resentment. Yun Jian's words made them lift their heads proudly. Yun Jian's action was telling them that everyone in Falcon Hall was a part of the organization. Those who bullied Falcon Hall were the ones who hurt her. Yun Jian was not going to let the matter rest. Sister Jian, I'll go with you. Knowing that Su Zitian was out of danger, Duan Lei did not look after him and went to Yun Jian. At the same time, his eyes were red with anger. His eyes were no longer filled with tears, but instead, they were filled with anger and the fury of revenge. Sister Jian, we're going too. Me too. How dare Flying Passage lay a finger on our boss? We're going to bathe them in blood. Loud voices resounded throughout the place. Everyone had only one thought in mind, and that was to make Flying Passage pay the price. They were 100% sure that Su Zitian's injury was Flying Passage's doing. No one is allowed to go. Yun Jian looked at the group and spoke with a press of her lips. Then, she continued, but what she said was hot-blooded. It's just Flying Passage. I alone am enough to take it down. Yun Jian's brash and arrogant words sounded domineering to the ears of the others. No one thought that she was young and frivolous. Chapter 422. On the highway from Longmen City to Taizhou City, a fiery red Ferrari LaFerrari sped along. The red Ferrari overtook countless cars, pulling the distance to the maximum. The camera turned around and passed by the corner of a mirror. A delicate and pretty little face was reflected in the mirror. Yun Jian sat in the driver's seat of the Ferrari LaFerrari. She turned the car around and sped along the highway where there were fewer cars. There was only one destination for her, Taizhou City, flyover. She was the only one involved in this operation. Since she said that she alone was enough, Yun Jian did not allow anyone from Falcon Hall to follow her to Taizhou City. In addition, Su Zitian still needed care. The success of the operation did not mean that Su Zitian was out of danger. After all, the injury was near his heart and he had to be nursed carefully if he wanted to recover. To prevent snipers who saw that Su Zitian was not dead and came back, Yun Jian sent Qing Yu to patrol Falcon Hall more often. Qing Yu might not be strong, but she had thousands of ways to kill her opponent when it came to assassination. Therefore, as long as Qing Yu was guarding Falcon Hall, Su Zitian and his men would be fine. Taizhou City, flyover. A lavish and extravagant evening banquet was being held. The banquet was brightly lit all around. During this period of time, countless people came and went, expressing their goodwill one after another. It was a scene of harmony and joy. Somewhere in the banquet, a bald middle-aged man was holding a red wine glass in his right hand. He was chatting with a man of similar age who was only wearing a black unlined shirt and had a dragon tattoo near his collarbone. The bald middle-aged man was none other than the boss of Taizhou City's flyover. His name was Su Zhouzhang and people called him Third Master. Flyover was more powerful than the original Falcon Hall. In addition, Su Zhoujing's flyover had always maintained its position as the second largest gang in the entire Zhe province. Therefore, his position was one of the best among all the gang bosses in Zhe province. The man with the dragon tattoo on his collarbone who Su Zhoujing was talking to was the head of a firearms family, Yan Tianlei. Yan Tianlei's firearms family had no international reputation, but in Z country, he was a major firearms smuggler. Even Su Zhoujing, who was the second largest gang in Zhe province, could not help but feel respect for Yan Tianlei. It could be said that this banquet was held by Su Zhoujing to welcome Yan Tianlei. Brother Su, I heard that you've been in a territorial dispute with Longmen City over recently. I wonder if it's true. Yan Tianlei held his wine glass as he looked at Su Zhoujing with a grin. His face that did not look handsome looked even more menacing. That's right. Su Zhoujing nodded. As if he wanted to establish a good relationship with Yan Tianlei, he purposely leaned close to Yan Tianlei's ear and whispered, Brother Yan, you and I are old friends. There are some things I won't hide from you. Longmen City's Falcon Hall has a new boss now. I didn't go to the National Mafia Tea Party last time, but I've heard some things. But I just don't believe in this. What use can A? Other than spreading her legs to give birth, what can she do? I'll be honest with you. I've hired a sniper. If there's no accident, the current boss of Falcon Hall is probably dead by now. Just as Su Zhoujing finished his tirade, the tightly shut door of the banquet was kicked open from the outside. A young girl with a delicate and beautiful face wearing a long black down jacket walked in, attracting the attention of many people. Su Zhoujing and Yan Tianlei were shocked as well. Chapter 423. Yun Jian's appearance and her domineering and arrogant words attracted everyone's attention. Including Su Zhoujing, who was called out, and Yan Tianlei, who was standing in front of Su Zhoujing and chatting with him. Everyone turned their attention to Yun Jian, who had just kicked the door open. Yun Jian's delicate face was delicately sculpted. She was dressed in a plain, long, black down jacket that wrapped around her impressive figure. It was not hard to imagine what kind of figure lay beneath the thick jacket. In spite of it, the most shocking thing was what Yun Jian said. Everyone knew that this banquet was hosted by the boss of Flying Bridge, Su Zhoujing, and that the host was Yan Tianlei, who came from an armaments family. And this young girl who had appeared out of nowhere dared to provoke the boss of Flying Bridge in front of everyone. Didn't her mother teach her that doing so would bring about a fatal disaster? Everyone was guessing Yun Jian's identity, but judging from Yun Jian's youthful appearance, everyone could only guess that she was a student in school. Other than that, there was nothing else. In spite of it, what Yun Jian said just now had truly stunned them. Su Zhoujing frowned maliciously. He reached out and ran his hand through his bald head, his lips curling into a sinister smile. Little girl, you're looking for me? Su Zhoujing was standing at a corner of the banquet. He was currently looking at Yun Jian from the corner of his eyes. When he saw Yun Jian's face, there was a hint of mockery in his eyes. Everyone in the circle knew that Su Zhoujing's tone had a hint of mockery in it. It was a sign that he was about to lose his temper. Hence, when the people around saw it, they were so scared that they hid a distance away. What a joke. Su Zhoujing was the boss of Taizhou City's black market. Who would dare offend him? However, just as the crowd was about to sit back and enjoy the show, thinking that Yun Jian would be done for daring to behave so atrociously in front of Su Zhoujing, the young girl's clear voice rang out again. You're the one I'm looking for. How dare Flying Bridge send a sniper to hurt Falcon Hall's men? I'm going to destroy Flying Bridge today. What frivolous words. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. In an instant, they turned their heads to look at Yun Jian. Everyone's eyes were filled with more thoughts. Could this girl be from Falcon Hall? It wasn't that the crowd didn't believe Yun Jian's words, but Yun Jian's age made it hard for them to believe. More importantly, if she claimed to be a member of Falcon Hall, why did she come alone? Thus, at that moment, everyone took Yun Jian's words to be a joke. What's more, she had shamelessly boasted that she was going to destroy Flying Passage. Just her alone? Puff. Are you kidding me? One had to know that the Sky Bridge Gang was the second largest gang in Jia province. Even the largest gang in Jia province would not be able to destroy the Sky Bridge Gang. Just by herself? To hell with it. F***CK, you little brat, scram back to where you came from. Falcon Hall? Who does Falcon Hall think it is? Little girl, don't try to act cool for no reason. Do it again and I'll shoot you. Just then, one of Su Zhouzheng's underlings swiftly whipped out a shiny pistol and pointed it at Yun Jian, threatening her. Seeing Su Zhouzheng's underlings whipping out a pistol, the crowd shuddered. After all, everyone was afraid of guns from the bottom of their hearts. However, Yun Jian, who had a gun pointed at her head, did not bat an eyelid. She curled her lips slightly without anyone noticing, and a murderous glint flashed across her eyes. Isn't she Falcon Hall's new boss, slaying Luo? I saw her at the National Mafia tea party. Just then, someone in the crowd suddenly pointed at Yun Jian and shouted in a trembling voice. Chapter 424. The person who spoke was the boss of a small gang. He did not have much authority, and there were only a few hundred people in his gang. However, he was fortunate enough to attend the National Mafia tea party. When Yun Jian appeared just now, the person felt a sense of familiarity. Originally, a small gang like his wasn't qualified to participate in the National Mafia tea party, but he relied on his connections to force his way in. He had only caught a few glimpses of Yun Jian from afar. He had found Yun Jian familiar when she appeared. He thought for a while and suddenly recalled. Wasn't she the boss of Falcon Hall, slaying Luo? Her? Falcon Hall's new boss? She's the woman named Slaying Luo? Really? I heard that a mysterious man had annihilated the #1 gang in the northern region, the Green Tiger Gang, for Falcon Hall's boss, Slaying Luo. She's just a woman who relied on a man to get to where she is now. Not necessarily. She's not to be trifled with. Everyone present began to talk among themselves. Their words were filled with deep admiration for Yun Jian, but there were also some who snorted at her. No one had expected Falcon Hall's new boss, Slaying Luo, to be so young. Even Su Zhouzheng and Yan Tianlei could not help but take a deep breath. When the Flying Passage members heard that Yun Jian was Falcon Hall's boss, Slaying Luo, they all ran over to surround Yun Jian. Given the current hostility between Flying Passage and Falcon Hall, the Flying Passage members would not hold back now that Yun Jian's identity had been exposed. You're Falcon Hall's boss, Slaying Luo? Su Zhouzheng could not help but reevaluate Yun Jian. He changed his tone and walked up to Yun Jian with a frown, but his attitude had changed drastically. However, due to the territorial dispute between Flying Passage and Falcon Hall, Su Zhouzheng was not in a good mood even if he did not look at Yun Jian with that mocking gaze. She was surrounded by her brothers from Flying Passage. One of Su Zhouzheng's men was even pointing a gun at her. However, she faced Su Zhouzheng fearlessly and did not panic at all. Congratulations, you guessed right. Yun Jian's eyelids didn't even twitch as she said this directly. After a pause, she added coldly, unfortunately, there's no prize for guessing correctly. Su Zhouzheng frowned. He suddenly looked at Yun Jian with disdain, as if he was looking at a dead person. He had been eyeing Falcon Hall's downtown area for a long time and had wanted to take it for himself, but Falcon Hall had refused to let go. Falcon Hall was ranked near the bottom among all the gangs in Jia province, and Flying Passage was the second largest gang in the province. Therefore, Su Zhouzheng flew into a rage out of humiliation when he failed to take over. He sent a sniper to kill Falcon Hall's boss, and in the end, annihilated Falcon Hall. However, Su Zhouzheng did not know that the sniper he sent had targeted the wrong person. Therefore, Su Zetian took a bullet for Yun Jian for nothing. Since you're here, don't think of leaving. Su Zhouzheng suddenly smiled sinisterly. He clapped his hands and a sinister smile appeared on his face. Su Zhouzheng had never believed in rumors. Especially after seeing Yun Jian in person, Su Zhouzheng believed that she was just a woman who spread her legs and relied on men to get to where she was now. After Su Zhouzheng clapped his hands, another group of people rushed out from the back of the banquet and surrounded Yun Jian in layers. When the crowd saw this, they did not even dare to make a sound. However, everyone only had one thought in mind. This woman named Luo Sha dared to challenge Flying Passage alone. She was done for. Chapter 425. Wipe out Flying Passage. You think you can do it alone? Su Zhoujing laughed when he heard Yun Jian say she wanted to wipe out his gang for the second time. It was a mocking and contemptuous laugh. Clearly, Yun Jian had come alone and boasted that she wanted to wipe out Flying Passage. In the eyes of Su Zhoujing and everyone else present, it was unrealistic. Even the biggest gang in Jia province could not do anything to Flying Passage. She was just a little brat. Not only had she come alone, she even wanted to wipe out Flying Passage. That was more unbelievable than dinosaurs coming back to life. I alone am enough to wipe out Flying Passage. Yun Jian laughed just as arrogantly. However, Su Zhoujing was really pushed to the edge when he heard that. No one would be able to take it if someone continued to act so arrogantly in front of him. Moreover, Su Zhoujing was the boss of Taizhou City's black market. Su Zhoujing was truly enraged to be mocked by an underage girl in front of so many people. His sinister face contorted. His bald head coupled with his tightly furrowed brows made him look repulsive. Kill. Kill. Kill this bitch for me. Damn it. She has a death wish. How dare she behave so atrociously in my territory? Su Zhoujing pointed at Yun Jian and shouted at his men who had formed a circle around Yun Jian. Yes, sir. Su Zhoujing's men answered. Tisk, tsk, tsk. However, before Su Zhoujing's men could do anything to Yun Jian, they heard a series of noises. Thump, thump. Following the noises, Su Zhoujing's men felt a sharp pain in their knees. The next second, they were all kneeling on the ground. They had not attacked yet. A large number of them had already fallen. However, this group of Su Zhoujing's subordinates who were kneeling on the ground all had one thing in common. Their knees were pierced deeply by a very small blade, forcing everyone to kneel on the ground at the same time as if their legs were paralyzed or directly fell to the ground. When the blade pierced deep into their knees, excruciating pain spread throughout their bodies. Before Su Zhoujing's subordinates could make a move, they had all fallen to the ground and were howling in pain. This scene scared the hell out of everyone. Everyone saw that the blades that had pierced into the knees of Su Zhoujing's men had been shot out by Yun Jian. Ah! Boss, this blade is poisonous. We can't stand up. One of Su Zhoujing's men who had fallen down shouted desperately. They only felt that their bodies were weak. After being stabbed by the blades, they didn't even have the strength to stand up. What was going on? Everyone was terrified. Then, they all turned to look at Yun Jian. However, Yun Jian pursed her lips slightly and revealed a contemptuous smile in front of everyone. She even knew how to poison him. Moreover, the way he threw the blade was exactly the same as the assassins in the movies. Everyone looked at Yun Jian in horror, as if they had seen the Grim Reaper. No wonder she was so confident. The blades in her hands were laced with poison. Once they pierced someone, that person would instantly go limp and would not even have the strength to stand up. Yun Jian smirked when she saw that Su Zhoujing's men were already wailing and howling. These flying blades had been soaked in Qin Yu's poison. Once the blades grazed the body and came into contact with the blood in the body, the person would instantly go limp and would not even have the strength to stand up. This woman has a trick up her sleeve. Zhou Jia, shoot her. Quick. Kill her. Su Zhoujing shouted in horror. He quickly ordered the gun-wielding subordinate beside him, clearly shocked by Yun Jian's actions. Before he could finish, Yun Jian's leisurely voice rang out again. It's time for the game to end. Since Flying Passage dares to target Falcon Hall, you'll have to pay the price. Chapter 426. As he spoke, Yun Jian's figure had already flashed. Su Zhoujing's gun-wielding subordinate, Zhou Jia, listened to Su Zhouzheng's words and quickly grabbed the pistol and aimed at Yunjian again. But in the blink of an eye, where was Yunjian? Gone. I'm here. Suddenly, the girl's light voice came from behind. Zhou Jie's heart tightened. He grabbed the pistol in horror and turned around, but just as he turned around, he heard a "chi" sound, and a blade had already pierced his leg. His body went soft in an instant, and Zhou Jie fell straight to the ground like a puddle of mud. Yunjian's speed just now was so fast that it could not be captured by the naked eye. Everyone present was horrified, especially Su Zhouzheng. He watched in horror as Yunjian stabbed the blade into Zhou Jie's leg, and then Zhou Jie fell to the ground. The pistol in Zhou Jie's hand also slipped to the ground. You. Su Zhouzheng's mouth was wide open. His shock at this time could no longer be described with words. Su Zhouzheng's group of subordinates all fell to the ground at this time, and no one could still stand and look at Yunjian. Even Yen Tianlei, who was born in a family of arms and was used to seeing the world, could not help but tremble at this time. This girl was not human at all. This kind of strength, this kind of skill. She was not like the woman in the rumors who relied on men to get to the top. What? Yunjian continued to maintain her slightly restrained smile. She looked at Su Zhouzheng, and the corner of her mouth was filled with a smile that made everyone present feel creepy. With a "pa" sound, Yunjian did not look at the ground. She stretched out her foot and stomped forward, stepping on the pistol that Zhou Jie had just slid to the ground. With a sudden stomp, Yunjian's foot was slightly stronger, and the pistol was hooked by Yunjian's foot and bounced up. This jump happened to be at the height of Yunjian's hanging hand. She only needed to reach forward and grab the handle of the pistol. At this moment, Yunjian's actions were more like a demon from hell. Her movements were extremely smooth, as if she had practiced it countless times. Su Zhouzheng couldn't help but tremble. He no longer dared to treat Yunjian as an ordinary girl or a woman who relied on men to get to the top. He even began to regret treating Yunjian as that kind of woman. At this moment, Yunjian skillfully fiddled with the pistol. She fiddled with the pistol out of habit and pointed the muzzle at Su Zhouzheng. How do you want to die? Yunjian narrowed her eyes with a smile. Her words carried a frightening evil intent. Su Zhouzheng, who witnessed Yunjian snatching the gun and pointing the muzzle at him, trembled all over his body. He was so scared that his face turned pale. All of Su Zhouzheng's men were defeated by Yunjian. Although he had some martial arts, judging from Yunjian's skills just now, his little bit of martial arts was not enough at all. However, Su Zhouzheng was not a person who would wait for death. His face twisted and he quickly threatened, "You can't kill me. If you kill me, then my brother will definitely avenge me. Do you know who my brother is? He's a member of the Kosha mercenaries. If you kill me, you'll die." This was Su Zhouzheng's trump card, and Su Zhouzheng would only use this trump card when his life was threatened. However, after hearing Su Zhouzheng's words, Yunjian's hand paused. She drew an arc. Oh. Su Zhouzheng actually has a brother who works for the Kosha mercenaries. The Kosha mercenaries were popular all over the world, so Yunjian was not surprised that she could meet members of the Kosha mercenaries wherever she went. Chapter 427. Everyone's eyelids twitched at Su Zhouzheng's words. Even Yen Tianlei could not help the twitch of his lips. Su Zhouzheng's brother was from the Kosha mercenaries. If Su Zhouzheng had not encountered a life-threatening situation, he would not have mentioned it and the others would not have known. Now that they knew, however, it was impossible for them to remain calm. The Kosha mercenaries. Those present were either in the underworld or related to the black market, so they were familiar with the Kosha mercenaries. Such a powerful organization of assassins and mercenaries was one of the top organizations in the world. Other than an Hun group, there was no one else who could compete with it. Su Zhouzheng's brother was from the Kosha mercenaries. This was enough to shock everyone. Just like how Su Zetian was a member of the Kosha mercenaries, anyone who belonged to the Kosha mercenaries would be protected by the Kosha mercenaries. Back when Su Zetian made a bet with the foreigners, he had invited the Kosha mercenaries to help him. Yun Jian had just been reborn then, and Snake Lizard had come to Longmen City using that as an excuse. Since Su Zhoujing's brother was a member of the Kosha mercenaries, it meant that his brother could also seek help from the Kosha mercenaries. In other words, as long as he was a member of the Kosha mercenaries, he would have the support of the Kosha mercenaries, the mercenary organization that was renowned throughout the world. Looking at the people around him who panicked when they heard him say that his brother was a member of the Kosha mercenaries, Su Zhoujing felt himself regaining his composure. When Su Zhoujing turned to look at Yun Jian and saw that there was no fear or panic on her face, he was stupefied. "It's the Kosha mercenaries. Aren't you afraid?" Su Zhoujing asked Yun Jian indignantly. He did not believe that Yun Jian was not even afraid of the Kosha mercenaries. "Scared?" Yun Jian raised her eyebrows. She seemed to have heard the funniest joke in the world. She chuckled and then pursed her lips. "Your brother's code name." Yun Jian's smile faded as her lips curled up, her eyes narrowed into slits as she asked with interest. Su Zhoujing thought that Yun Jian did not know the might of the Kosha mercenaries. He even exaggerated, "His name is Leopard Head. In the Kosha mercenaries, he can be ranked in the top 1,000. As he spoke, Su Zhoujing raised his head as if he was showing off something incredible to Yun Jian. His bald head could not help but look proud. Pfft, Yun Jian was really amused by Su Zhoujing. She chuckled softly. Being ranked in the top 1,000 of the Kosha mercenaries meant that he could hold his own in Country Z. However, Su Zhoujing's actions were like bragging about how powerful his brother Mouse was in front of Tiger. "I don't remember when being ranked in the top 1,000 of the Kosha mercenaries was considered a powerful person." Yun Jian stopped laughing. She stretched out her hand and gently brushed away the hair that was hanging down. Her lips curled up slightly as she spoke. "My Kosha mercenaries?" The group latched onto the 6 words that Yun Jian had uttered. To be able to use the words, "my Kosha mercenaries," other than the boss of the Kosha mercenaries, only the higher-ups of the Kosha mercenaries had such qualifications. She was also a member of the Kosha mercenaries. Furthermore, she was. Chapter 428. You're also a member of the Kosha mercenaries?" Su Zhoujing shouted in despair. Su Zhoujing's biggest trump card was his brother in the Kosha mercenaries. Whenever he was in trouble, his brother would always be there to protect him. In turn, Su Zhoujing was indirectly protected by the Kosha mercenaries. Because of this, Su Zhoujing's Flying Passage was already ranked as the 2nd largest gang in Jia province. "What do you think?" Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. She twirled the gun in her hand and pointed it at Su Zhoujing. "All right, enough with the nonsense. But I have to thank you. If you didn't tell me, I probably wouldn't have known that the Kosha mercenaries have a useless brother like your brother." Yun Jian closed one of her eyes. She laughed maniacally and narrowed her eyes at Su Zhoujing. "No. Don't kill me. I was wrong, don't kill me." After realizing that Yun Jian was not afraid that his brother was a member of the Kosha mercenaries, Su Zhoujing immediately realized that Yun Jian might really be a member of the Kosha mercenaries. She might even be a high-ranking member of the Kosha mercenaries. Su Zhoujing was in a mess. He suddenly turned around and ran forward as if he was running for his life. Seeing Su Zhoujing running away in a frenzy, the crowd felt that it was unrealistic. Su Zhoujing was the boss of the Flying Passage in Taizhou City. In spite of it, he was forced into this state by Yun Jian. Yan Tianlei knew that anything could happen if he did not step up now, so he quickly said to Yun Jian, "You're right. Hello, young friend. I'm from the Yan family's firearms family. I wonder if you can give me some face and spare brother Su this time." Yan Tianlei's words made Yun Jian's hand that was about to pull the trigger pause. Yan Tianlei was delighted. He thought that he had convinced Yun Jian. Who knew that in the next second, there would be a loud bang. The gun in Yun Jian's hand emitted a wisp of green smoke, but she didn't have any extra expression on her face. Bang! A crisp sound came from afar. Su Zhouzheng, who was running away in a panic, was hit in the heart by a bullet and died on the spot. Yun Jian's marksmanship was extremely fast and accurate. There wasn't even the slightest bit of deviation. Everyone looked at Yun Jian in horror. They watched as she gently raised her hand and put away the pistol. She turned to Yen Tianlei, whose face instantly turned pale, and said loudly, "Give you face." "Who are you? Why should I give you face?" Su Zhouzheng had to die. Su Zetian had almost lost his life, not to mention that Su Zetian had blocked the attack for himself. What Su Zhou wanted was his own life. Yun Jian had once said that she would kill anyone who wanted her life first. Su Zhouzheng's death meant that Flying Passage was no more. After all, a gang without a leader was the easiest to take over. Yen Tianlei's pale face was drained of blood. He wasn't the only one. Even those who had been in the underworld for years or had plenty of experience were completely stunned when they saw how decisive Yun Jian was in killing someone. She showed no signs of panic after killing someone, as if killing someone was just a simple meal. Was she really just a teenage girl? Yun Jian merely sneered at the terrified expressions of the people around her. She wasn't in a hurry to leave. Instead, she said arrogantly, "I'm never careless when it comes to killing. If Flying Passage dares to mess with Falcon Hall, then they'll have to pay the price. Listen up, if anyone dares to lay a finger on Falcon Hall in the future, Flying Passage will be your escape route." Chapter 429. Anyone who dared lay a finger on Falcon Hall would suffer the same fate as Flying Passage. Flying Passage, destroyed. As if to prove that statement, Yun Jian led Falcon Hall's upper echelons into Flying Passage's headquarters the moment she returned. Due to the loss of their leader, internal strife broke out within Flying Passage. That was when Falcon Hall took advantage of the situation and seized control of the upper echelons of Flying Passage. In less than a day, they had taken over the entire Flying Passage. Flying Passage was the second largest gang in Jia Province. Even Leopard Pack, the largest gang in Jia Province, could not wipe them out. Yet, in less than a day, Falcon Hall, the weakest gang in Jia Province, had taken over Flying Passage and taken it under their name at lightning speed. Now that Falcon Hall had taken over Flying Passage's territory, it was only logical that they would become the second largest gang in Jia Province. In other words, all of Flying Passage's territory had been taken over by Falcon Hall. The black market was in an uproar when the news came out. At the same time, everyone knew that Flying Passage had planned to fight for territory with Falcon Hall. Since the fight did not go well, Flying Passage's boss, Su Zhouzheng, had sent someone to assassinate Falcon Hall's boss, slaying Luo. However, the sniper had hit the wrong person, causing Falcon Hall's former boss, Su Zetian, to take a bullet and almost die. Falcon Hall's new boss, slaying Luo, was enraged. She had gone to Flying Passage's headquarters alone and killed Su Zhouzheng, the boss, on her own. Then, she had taken advantage of Flying Passage's internal strife to take over the entire gang. Flying Passage's boss, Su Zhouzheng, had wanted to fight for Falcon Hall's territory because he had set his eyes on it. In the end, Falcon Hall's boss, slaying Luo, had taken over Flying Passage. Everyone in the black market was dumbfounded when they heard the news. Falcon Hall's new boss, slaying Luo, was not only a woman, but she also had such capabilities. Flying Passage was no pushover. However, which black market boss in Z country could be as ferocious as her? From now on, countless gang bosses would tremble in fear when they heard Yun Jian's name. Who would dare say that Yun Jian was a woman who relied on men to get to where she was now? Be careful. They would end up like Flying Passage. After Yun Jian and her men had taken over Flying Passage, the higher-ups of Falcon Hall were extremely busy. Of course, Yun Jian only led the higher-ups in the gang to take down Flying Passage. As for the final tidying up, she left that to Falcon Hall's higher-ups. At this moment, the higher-ups of Falcon Hall were beside themselves with excitement. Falcon Hall headquarters. Under Su Zifan's care, Su Zetian woke up in less than a day and a half. After finishing her work, Yun Jian went to Falcon Hall's headquarters to visit Su Zetian. At this time, Su Zifan had just finished nursing Su Zetian and left, and Su Zetian's wife had been staying by his side to serve him. It was the first time that Su Zetian's wife, Yun Jian, met her. Her name was Lin Wanru. She was also in her 40s, but she looked gentle and virtuous, like a lady from a scholarly family. Although Su Zetian was a gangster, he loved his wife dearly. In this lifetime, he only had Lin Wanru as his wife, and they only had one son, Su Haokol. In the gang, Su Zetian rarely allowed his wife, Lin Wanru, to come into contact with the black market. He protected his wife very well. There were not many people in the world who could do what Su Zetian did. Chapter 430. Just lie down. You don't have to get up, Yun Jian said with a wave of her hand. It was then that Su Zetian's urge to sit up was halted. Lin Wanru helped her husband lie back down considerately. Thank you, Sister Jian. Su Zetian had heard some stories while lying in bed these days. For example, it was Yun Jian who had saved his life. It was also Yun Jian who had gone to Flying Passage alone to wipe out his gang to avenge him. The gratitude in Su Zetian's heart couldn't be described with words. Back when Yun Jian asked for Falcon Hall, Su Zetian was still hesitant. Now, however, he would die a horrible death if he had second thoughts. Yun Jian had really led Falcon Hall out of Longmen City. Falcon Hall was now the second largest gang in Jia province. They were replacing the Sky Bridge gang. You don't have to thank me, Yun Jian said faintly. In spite of it, Su Zetian could feel her sincerity. Yun Jian did not know how to express herself, but she would use her actions to tell others and Su Zetian that she had taken him as one of her own. Yun Jian had always been protective of her own people. As long as someone offended her people, she would get rid of them as soon as possible. Rest well for the next few days. Go back to Falcon Hall after you've recovered, Yun Jian said. Yes. Su Zetian nodded heavily as he lay on the bed. He was accompanied by his wife, Lin Wanru, to Falcon Hall's headquarters today to look for Su Zifan to take care of him. Yun Jian had operated on him and stitched up the wound well. Su Zetian could basically walk with the help of others now, but his wound would not be torn apart as long as he did not move too much. Rest well then. I've passed your recent work to Duan Lei. I'll be away for a while before the new year and will be back after that. Yun Jian had arranged everything in an orderly manner. After saying that, she waited for Su Zetian to respond again before she turned around and left. Walking out of Falcon Hall's headquarters, someone suddenly caught up to her and called out to her. Yun Jian turned to see Lin Wanru jogging to catch up to her. Little girl, your name is Yun Jian, right? Thank you. Thank you for saving my husband. Although Lin Wanru was already in her 40s, she still looked very young. It was not an exaggeration to think that she was a young woman in her 20s or 30s. It was hard to imagine that this gentle, virtuous, and young-looking woman was Su Haokol's biological mother. I know my husband thanked you just now, but I still want to say thank you to you personally. Lin Wanru looked at Yun Jian sincerely. Yun Jian's pursed lips suddenly relaxed. She smiled slightly and responded to Lin Wanru's words. You're welcome. After returning from Falcon Hall, Yun Jian did not go home. She went to Lan Su's place first to inform him that she would not be coming back these few days before going to Qin Yu's house. When she went to Qin Yu's house today, she was the only one at home. As for her brother, Yun Yi, Yun Jian guessed that he had probably gone for tutoring. Yun Yi was a studious person, so he would go for tutoring during the winter break to improve his grades. Qin Yu ran to open the door and smiled when she saw Yun Jian. Sister Jian, you're here? Are you done packing? Yun Jian asked. I'm ready. I'm ready to go anytime. Qin Yu shook herself like she was relaxed and answered with a grin. On Qin Yu's side, Yun Jian had already found an excuse. Now, Yun Jian and Qin Yu were in a Ferrari sports car heading to the nearest airport. Chapter 431. The headquarters of the Kosha mercenaries was located on a mysterious island in Country M. As it was an internationally renowned mercenary organization, the location of its headquarters was well hidden. There was no direct bus to the headquarters of the Kosha mercenaries. Even if there was a transfer, there was no way to get there. Even from Country M to the island where the headquarters of the Kosha mercenaries was located, one had to cross a huge ocean to reach the island where the headquarters of the Kosha mercenaries was located. In her past life, Yun Jian had always flown a private helicopter back to the headquarters of the Kosha mercenaries when she returned. It was just that those old fellows thought that something had happened to her and Yun Jian had not shown up for so long. She did not want to return in a high-profile manner. She wanted to catch them off guard. After buying a flight ticket to Country M at the airport of Hutua Mountain, which was closest to Longmen City, Yun Jian sat in the departure lounge of the airport and waited. Qin Yu went to buy snacks while Yun Jian sat on the bench in the departure lounge with her eyes closed leisurely. There were not many people waiting to board the plane at the airport. In 1998, the airport was quite expensive. Ordinary people rarely took planes, so there were only a few types of people waiting to board the plane. There were mature white-collar workers in suits and leather shoes, well-dressed ladies, and some overseas students. In earlier years, people would usually travel by train instead of by plane. Yun Jian sat in the airport waiting for her flight when a sharp female voice suddenly rang in her ears. "Ah. You bumped into me. Do you have eyes? Oh my God. You even knocked my bag off. My bag is from Chanel. Can you afford to pay for it?" Yun Jian's eyes opened a little. She saw a rich lady in her 20s or 30s bending down to pick up a branded bag in the crowd and scolding an 18 or 19-year-old girl in a floral dress. "Yes. I'm sorry." The girl in the floral dress was startled and bowed to the rich lady, looking a little shaken. Yun Jian lost her interest at once with a glance. Naturally, other people's matters had nothing to do with her. Qin Yu came running back with a bucket of popcorn and passed it to Yun Jian with a fawning grin. "Sister Jian, try it. It's delicious. I just queued up for a long time." Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and curled her lips slightly. She reached out to take one and tasted it. At this moment, the loudspeaker in the departure hall sounded. "Attention please, passengers. The plane to Country M's Case City is about to take off. Please proceed to the ticketing area to board the plane." A beautiful female voice sounded from the loudspeaker. Yun Jian carried her backpack and boarded the plane together with Qin Yu, who was carrying popcorn. They boarded the plane according to the order and Qin Yu sat close to the window. It was a row of 3 seats with Yun Jian sitting in the middle. There was an empty seat beside her. Yun Jian closed her eyes and rested for a while. At this moment, a hurried dang 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 sound was heard. Yun Jian felt something heavy hit her thigh. Opening her eyes slightly, she saw a girl in a floral dress speaking to her apologetically. "My luggage accidentally bumped into you just now." "Sorry, are you okay?" "I'm fine," Yun Jian answered with a press of her lips. The girl in the floral dress was the one who had been scolded by the rich lady in the departure hall just now. Hearing Yun Jian's reply, the girl in the floral dress kept quiet. Chapter 432. Along the way, Yun Jian did not speak to the girl in the floral dress who sat on her right. The atmosphere was strangely strange. It was a 24-hour flight, so all 3 meals a day were served on the plane. By the time they got off the plane, it was already the next morning. Due to the time difference between Country M and Country Z, Yun Jian had boarded the plane yesterday evening. Now that 24 hours had passed, it was already morning in Country M, Case City. After they got off the plane, Yun Jian and Qin Yu changed buses. They were going to the harbor and take a boat out to the sea to reach the island closest to the Kosha mercenaries' headquarters. They would then take a yacht back. The Kosha mercenaries' headquarters was not a place that anyone could visit. In her past life, Yun Jian had flown a helicopter directly. Now that she planned to go back in a low-profile manner, she would have to go through a lot of twists and turns. Just as Yunjian and Qinyu boarded the bus to the harbor, a surprised female voice came from behind them. "Hey, are you two going to the harbor as well?" The female voice sounded pleasantly surprised. Yunjian turned around and saw the girl in the floral dress whom they had met on the plane. The girl in the floral dress was looking at Yunjian and Qinyu in surprise, as if she had met a fellow countryman in another country and realized that they were traveling together. "Yeah, we're going to the harbor." Before Yunjian could speak, Qinyu answered for Yunjian. "What a coincidence. Can we go all the way?" "Hee, I'm Hua Meiling, what about you two?" The girl named Hua Meiling asked excitedly. "I'm Qinyu, she's Yunjian," Qinyu answered on behalf of Yunjian. They were considered familiar with each other now. On the bus to the harbor, Qinyu and Hua Meiling's laughter could be heard. Yunjian would chime in occasionally as well. As they chatted, Hua Meiling told them about herself. She was going to the harbor to find her friends who had arrived there before them. They had decided to go to Heifei Island for a vacation. Hearing that Hua Meiling was going to Heifei Island, Yunjian's eyes flashed. Heifei Island was a sacred vacation spot in M Nation. At the same time, it was the closest island to the Kosha mercenaries' headquarters. Yunjian and Qinyu had to pass by Heifei Island to take the yacht back to the Kosha mercenaries' island. After taking the bus for 2 hours, they arrived at the harbor. As soon as she got out of the car, a group of young men and women in their late teens came over to greet Hua Meiling. "They are my friends," Hua Meiling introduced them to Yunjian and Qinyu. Hua Meiling then introduced Yunjian and Qinyu to her friends. "This is Qinyu, and this is Yunjian. We bumped into each other on the way, and it just so happens that we are both going to Heifei Island, so let's go together. Hello, two little beauties, my name is Zhang Ziyuan. Can I be your friend?" Hee. A handsome young man of about 18 or 19 walked over to greet Yunjian and Qinyu with a grin. Someone slapped Zhang Ziyuan from the side and teased, "Ziyuan, get lost. Your real girlfriend is still here and you dare to tease her little sister? Are you tired of living?" Haha. Hua Meiling's group of friends immediately started laughing noisily. "They're just like that. Don't mind them," Hua Meiling said to Yunjian and Qinyu with a smile. "It's fine." Yunjian narrowed her eyes and looked at the ground, feeling an unfriendly gaze on her and Qinyu. From the corner of her eyes, she saw an elegantly dressed, sweet-looking girl standing behind the laughing group, glaring at Yunjian and Qinyu with disgust. Chapter 433. Yunjian had experienced this gaze countless times, be it in her previous life or after her rebirth, so she ignored it. "Right, it's Sis Yunjian and Sis Qinyu's first time here for a vacation, right? Do you want me to be your guide?" Zhang Ziyuan, who was done fooling around with his friends, went to Yunjian and Qinyu to ask. Even the way he addressed them had become more intimate. She had heard from Hua Meiling that her group of friends were studying at a university in Case City in Country M. Hua Meiling had come here alone this time to travel. As Zhang Ziyuan and his friends who had been studying here for a long time, they naturally felt like locals welcoming outsiders. "No need." Yunjian pressed her lips together and declined decisively. Although Zhang Ziyuan had struck up a conversation with both Yunjian and Qinyu just now, he was more inclined toward Yunjian. Therefore, he was taken aback when Yunjian rejected him so decisively. So there are times when our K University's top students get rejected by girls too. A boy beside them commented coincidentally. After that, Yunjian could clearly feel Fan Weiwei's murderous gaze on her. At this time, the group of people also realized that what the boy said just now was too inappropriate. Moreover, Zhang Ziyuan's real girlfriend, Fan Weiwei, was right beside them. How dare he say that? In spite of it, Zhang Ziyuan did not mind at all. He even invited Yunjian and Qinyu again, only to be rejected by Yunjian once more. The more unobtainable something was, the more he wanted it. Zhang Ziyuan's interest in Yunjian was piqued. The group boarded the cruise ship to Heifei Islet at the harbor, each with their own thoughts. Hefei Islet was a famous scenic spot, so it was crowded with people. Sister Jian, are we going back to the organization directly or? When they arrived at Hefei Islet, Qin Yu went to Yun Jian and asked softly while Hua Meiling and the others were admiring the scenery. Just go back, Yun Jian answered without hesitation. She was not here for a vacation, so there was no need for her to go sightseeing with Hua Meiling and her friends. Just as Yun Jian said that, Hua Meiling, who was walking in front, called out to them, Yun Jian, Qin Yu, come quick. What are you standing there for? Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and caught up to them with Qin Yu. The island of Hefei Island was very vast. There was an area with a beach. Since it was winter, there were not many people swimming in the sea. It was not that there were none. Yun Jian and Qin Yu wanted to leave as soon as they arrived. But Hua Meiling and her friends were already having fun on the beach. At this moment, the sound of a gunshot rang out beside everyone's ears. Everyone was taken aback. Then, they saw a huge cruise ship coming ashore. On the side of the cruise ship, there was a unique skull imprinted on it. That was the symbol of the Kosha mercenaries. Yun Jian's eyes twitched as she pressed her lips together without saying a word. Hua Meiling's confused voice came from the side. What was that sound just now? This cruise ship is so weird. Why is there a skull on it? At this moment, the stairs on the cruise ship reached the ground, and a man in strange clothes walked down with a Browning pistol in his hand. There was a large group of people following behind him. These people had unique skulls printed on their wrists. At this moment, when everyone standing on the beach saw the man who suddenly appeared with a pistol in his hand, they were so scared that they screamed one after another. Ah! Gun! He has a gun! Someone exclaimed. But before the man could finish screaming, he was killed by the man holding the Browning pistol with a bang. Life was worthless. That was how the saying went. Hua Meiling and her friends paled in fright. Chapter 434. The man who had screamed just now was killed by the man with the gun. Hua Meiling and the rest had never seen anything like this before. They covered their mouths in fear, not daring to make a sound. The crowd was already in a frenzy. Some of them reacted quickly and turned to run. Bang, bang, bang. The man with the Browning pistol fired mercilessly at the fleeing group. Screams, kill. Run, kill. For a moment, everyone was dumbfounded by the sudden turn of events. They were overwhelmed by fear in the next second. Who was this man? How could he kill so brazenly? Everyone was clamoring in their hearts. At the same time, they were regretting why they had appeared here today. The gun in the man's hand was a pistol. A real gun. He had shot and killed someone. Everyone, if you run away again, don't blame my bullets for being blind. The man shouted with the Browning pistol in his hand. He shot and killed several foreigners. It was as if killing was as simple as eating and sleeping to him. Devil! Hua Meiling and the rest muttered in their hearts. Then, they began to tremble in fear. The man with the gun had spoken in English, but Hua Meiling, Yun Jian, and Qin Yu did not have a language barrier. Not long after, everyone present began to tremble. They were afraid that they would encounter something like this. They all trembled and tried to hide behind their companions. Sister Jian, he's Tulej's subordinate, say Bayer. He's ranked 31st in the organization. Qin Yu went close to Yun Jian and whispered into her ear. Tulej was one of the old men of the Kosha mercenaries who was often mentioned. He had a place in the Kosha mercenaries and was also the most loyal subordinate of the previous boss of the Kosha mercenaries. This man with the gun named Seibayer was Tulej's subordinate, which meant that he was Yun Jian's enemy. When Zhang Ziyuan saw Yun Jian and Qin Yu leaning against each other, he thought that they were scared. Therefore, he abandoned his girlfriend, Fan Weiwei, and went to Yun Jian to speak to Yun Jian and Qin Yu in concern. Don't be scared, I'm here. Qin Yu stopped talking to Yun Jian when she saw Zhang Ziyuan coming over. Zhang Ziyuan thought that Yun Jian and Qin Yu were scared instead, so he spread his arms and used his body to hide them behind him. Zhang Ziyuan's action allowed Yunjian and Qin Yu to avoid Seibayer's gaze. Seibayer looked around and saw that everyone around him was looking at him with fear, which made him even more arrogant. "You, come over here." At this moment, Seibayer suddenly caught sight of Hua Meiling, who was wearing a floral dress. He looked at Hua Meiling lecherously and hooked his finger at her. Seibayer of the Kosha mercenaries, ranked 31st, was a promiscuous bully. Hua Meiling was terrified. She stood where she was and shook her head, shrunk into herself nervously. Her action infuriated Seibayer. F***ck, woman, I'm flattering you by asking you to come over here. You shameless B***tch, F***ck. Seibayer growled, but he did not kill her directly since he had not tasted Hua Meiling yet. He ran over in an attempt to grab Hua Meiling. Hua Meiling was even more frightened by the turn of events. She shrunk into herself and leaned against Fan Weiwei behind her. A glint flashed across Fan Weiwei's eyes. She thought viciously that it was Hua Meiling who had provoked Yunjian and Qin Yu. Therefore, Fan Weiwei steeled her heart and pushed Hua Meiling toward Seibayer. Just as Hua Meiling was about to be caught by Seibayer, the crowd saw a silhouette flash by. Seibayer's hand that reached for Hua Meiling's chicken claw was broken by Yunjian, who appeared out of nowhere. Chapter 435. F***ck. Seibayer, who was kicked in the abdomen, groaned and fell to the ground. The place was silent as everyone stared unblinkingly at the petite silhouette. Everyone's eyes were glued to Yunjian without exception. Seibayer was a well-built adult man while Yunjian was only a 15-year-old girl. Moreover, Yunjian had been standing behind Zhang Ziyuan earlier. In that split second, she had appeared in front of the crowd and kicked Seibayer, who was holding a gun, away at an astonishing speed. The scene shocked the entire place. Yunjian. She. Zhang Ziyuan had stood in front of Yunjian and Qin Yu with his arms open, thinking that they were afraid of this scene. He did not expect Yunjian to be so agile. Zhang Ziyuan and the rest were dumbfounded. Hua Meiling was equally stunned. She stared blankly at Yunjian, who was standing in front of her. She had witnessed Yunjian's kick to Seibayer the clearest. Seibayer's abdomen, which was kicked by Yunjian, caved in at the same time. What kind of strength did Yunjian have to be able to kick a living person's abdomen to the point where it caved in? Hua Meiling was completely dumbfounded. She did not even think that she would have to escape with Yunjian in her current situation. F***ck. Seibayer, who was kicked away, was stronger than anyone Yunjian had met before. He stood up with a low growl. None of the Kosha mercenaries were weak. It was not something some of the people Yunjian had met before could compare to. UB***tch. How dare you kick me? Do you know who I am? I want you dead. Seibayer glanced at Yunjian's face greedily. He growled, but his eyes were fixed on Yunjian without blinking. With a growl from Seibayer, the group of people behind him ran up and surrounded Yunjian and Hua Meiling, who was standing behind Yunjian with their guns raised. Yunjian could clearly feel Hua Meiling's momentary fear. She held on to the corner of Yunjian's shirt and sobbed, "What? What should we do? Yunjian, what should we do? Are we going to die?" "Shut up," Yunjian growled at Hua Meiling. Yunjian then turned to face Seibayer with her delicate side profile. Seibayer, 35 years old. Belongs to Wuxia mercenaries, ranked 31st in the organization, one of Elder Tullidge's subordinates. Yunjian spoke to Seibayer mechanically as if she was reporting information. When everyone present heard this, they didn't know what to do. Kosha mercenaries? Most of the commoners had never come into contact with these assassin and secret agent organizations. Therefore, it was not surprising that most of them did not know. A well-behaved girl like Hua Meiling had never come into contact with these. However, Yunjian's words sounded different to Seibayer's ears. His information was kept confidential whether it was within or outside the Kosha mercenaries. How did this girl know about it? Seibayer frowned and snarled. His malicious gaze turned as eerie as a falcon's. "Damn it, you must die!" Sebaer roared at Yunjian. He even raised the Browning pistol that he had picked up after standing up and pointed it at Yunjian. "How dare you! Sebaer, how dare you act rashly in front of me!" It was then that Qin Yu slipped out from behind Zhang Ziyuan. Looking at Sebaer, her mischievous tone was gone as she hollered, "Brother Sebaer." Chapter 436. Qin Yu was also a member of the Kosha mercenaries and held a high position. Qin Yu might not be ranked among the Kosha mercenaries based on her ability, but her poison skills were even better than the Kosha mercenaries' top leader, Snake. Lizard. Qin Yu was also trained by Snake. Lizard. More importantly, Qin Yu was the one who followed the Kosha mercenaries' boss. Therefore, Qin Yu's position was not something the common folk could compare to. As for the Kosha mercenaries' boss, even Sebaer did not have the chance to meet her, let alone the common folk who had never seen her face. Other than Yunjian's most trusted subordinates, even the higher-ups of the Kosha mercenaries had never seen her face. In her past life, Yunjian would wear a human skin mask whenever she met the higher-ups of the Kosha mercenaries or those old fellows. Moreover, it was a different face every time. Therefore, these old fellows still did not know what she looked like in her past life. Yunjian's height in her past life was about the same as her current height. Therefore, Yunjian was not worried that anyone would find out about her rebirth. This was why the Kosha mercenaries' boss was so mysterious. Back to the topic, when Sebaer saw Qin Yu's face clearly, he was dumbfounded. With Qin Yu's position in the Kosha mercenaries, Sebaer could not afford to offend her. Why are you here?" Sebaer's attitude took a 360-degree turn. He even walked up to Qin Yu and lowered his body to ask. Looking at Sebaer's reaction, Hua Meiling, Fan Weiwei, and Zhang Ziyuan were dumbfounded. All the tourists at the scene were completely stunned. Everyone looked at Qin Yu in shock, as well as Sebaer, who had suddenly become respectful in front of her. Who was this little girl? How could she make Sebaer, who was so arrogant just a moment ago, submit to her in an instant? "Bastard, you've offended the person I respect the most. You don't deserve to know." Qin Yu raised her hand and slapped Sebaer hard. Everyone sucked in a breath of air. Everyone had witnessed Sebaer's killing spree. He was a demon. The people who were killed by Sebaer were killed for no reason at all, even though they hadn't done anything wrong. Now, Qin Yu had slapped him. However, Sebaer was not angry. Not only did he not dare to be angry, he even apologized to Qin Yu. This was the hierarchy of Kosha mercenaries. Sebaer dared not act rashly because Qin Yu's position in the Kosha mercenaries was higher than his. It would be a piece of cake for Qin Yu to kill Sebaer. Just when everyone thought that the matter was about to come to an end, a pleasant and indifferent voice was heard unhurriedly, "Kill him." Everyone looked towards the source of the voice and saw Yunjian pursing her lips slightly. She calmly spat out 3 words. However, these 3 words caused everyone to turn pale with fright. Even Sebaer was stunned. What right did she have to dictate his life and death? Qin Yu accepted the order with her eyes lowered. She looked at Sebaer from the corner of her eyes as if she was looking at a dead man. Sebaer was frightened by her gaze. He knew Qin Yu. She was a master of poison. The poison she created could turn a person's body into bones instantly. This was one of the main reasons why he was afraid of Qin Yu. Kill who? I'd like to see who dares. Right then, the humming sound of a helicopter's huge wings came from the sky. Then, an old man in his 50s or 60s jumped down from the helicopter. This person was the subordinate of the Kosha mercenaries' previous boss, Tulij. Sebaer was his man. Chapter 437. Tulij was an old man in his 50s or 60s. He had a ferocious face, but it was not hard to tell that he was not good-looking when he was younger. However, even though he was already very old, when he first appeared, he still shocked everyone present. Especially when Tullidge came down from a private helicopter. His actions were exactly like the villains in the movies. Hua Meiling, Zhang Ziyuan, Fan Weiwei, and the rest were rooted to the spot, completely dumbfounded. Not only the few of them, but the people on the beach were also overwhelmed by fear. This was because not long after Tullidge appeared, a large group of men in black uniforms with machine guns in their hands appeared in front of them. More importantly, their wrists were exposed. There was a unique skull-shaped symbol on their wrists that sent chills down one's spine. Most of the people present did not know the meaning of the symbol. However, due to their instincts towards danger, a sense of fear arose in their hearts when they saw the markings on the wrists of these people. Elder Tullidge. Sebaer was pleasantly surprised. Seeing that his elder had come to his rescue, he was no longer afraid of Qin Yu and quickly went to stand beside Tullidge. Tullidge had been with the Kosha mercenaries longer than Qin Yu. Even though Qin Yu and Tullidge were of the same rank, Tullidge's appeal in the Kosha mercenaries was still slightly higher than Qin Yu's. On the other hand, Qin Yu was standing beside Yun Jian. Both parties stared at each other. Currently, Tullidge was looking at Yun Jian insolently. His aged face looked like it was crawling with centipedes, looking ferocious and terrifying. However, when Tullidge was sizing up Yun Jian, he felt the terrifying aura emanating from Yun Jian. The aura sent chills down Tullidge's spine. Because he, Tullidge, had only experienced this kind of aura from one person. However, from what he knew, that person would not appear here. She had been missing for a long time. When Slaying God went missing, Tullidge had even sent people to conduct a large-scale search. In the end, they only managed to find Slaying God's favorite sports car, the Ferrari LaFerrari. But this person had mysteriously disappeared just like that. Then, he disappeared without a trace. In fact, they hadn't seen each other for almost half a year. What did it mean if a person on this path disappeared for half a year for no reason? There was only one explanation: she was already dead. After coming to this conclusion, Tullidge and the others were fearless. Recently, they couldn't sit still. Since that woman was already dead. In that case, the Kosha mercenaries should not be under that woman's command. Therefore, Tullidge's men began to ignore the Kosha mercenaries' rules on a large scale. Because he wanted to make a comeback and make his own decisions. Who are you? Tullidge pressed his lips together and squinted at Evil Eye. There was a hint of murderous intent in his malevolent gaze as he asked Yun Jian. Tullidge, you don't deserve to know. Qin Yu spat at Tullidge and answered on behalf of Yun Jian. Yun Jian merely narrowed her eyes. Tullidge? Are you Elder Tullidge from the Kosha mercenaries, the #1 mercenary organization in the world? Right then, a deep, mature male voice that had been silent for a long time was heard. There was a deep sense of horror and shock in it. As soon as the mature man's terrified voice rang out, everyone present understood what he meant. A mercenary organization. Was that not an organization that killed people? It was the #1 in the world. Everyone's eyes widened in shock. Hua Meiling and the rest looked at Tullidge and his men in horror. When they turned to look at Yun Jian, their eyes were filled with worry. Chapter 438. Hua Meiling and the rest were university students while Zhang Ziyuan, Fan Weiwei, and the rest were studying in a local university in Country M. How could they have ever seen such a terrifying scene? Hua Meiling and the rest were so scared that their legs turned to jelly when Sebaer shot and killed a bunch of people. Now, after hearing that Sebaer and Tullidge were from the #1 mercenary group in the world, he was so scared that his legs turned to jelly. Just like the introduction in the movie, the people in this underground mercenary group were all demons who killed without batting an eyelid. Human lives were worthless in their hands. Hence, everyone present was so scared that their legs turned to jelly and a chill ran down their spines. Sebaer's killing spree proved one thing. That was, it was very likely that none of the people present would be able to make it out alive. Oh my God. If they had known that they would encounter such a terrifying incident today, they would never have come to Heifei Island for a vacation. However, the most impossible thing in this world was medicine for regret. The words of the mature man with a low voice earlier caused a stir in the crowd, but it did not affect Tulig and Yunjian, who were looking at each other. Yunjian's slightly pursed lips curled up slightly in the next second, forming a stunning smile. She did not expect to meet Tulig and the rest on Haifei Island. She also did not expect that Tulig and the rest of the old men could not wait to disregard the Kosha mercenaries' rules and wreak havoc when she was out in the world for half a year. The Kosha mercenaries had a clear rule that they were not allowed to kill people on a large scale for no reason. Not only would it attract the police's attention, but it would also cause a lot of trouble if they were to clash with the international police force. Now, she had only disappeared for half a year and Tulig was already disregarding the Kosha mercenaries' rules. Tulig, you're good. Yunjian gritted her teeth and gave Tulig a cruel smile as she spoke. No one could tell what she meant. However, Tulig's eyelids twitched. She was just a little girl. Although she looked similar to Slaying God, so what? Tulig firmly believed that Yunjian was dead. Although Tulig had never seen Yunjian's face in her previous life, he could sense her. Moreover, Slaying God had survived a hail of bullets while the little girl in front of him was beautiful and her hands were fair and delicate. It was impossible for Slaying God, who wielded weapons all the time, to have such fair hands. Therefore, even when Qin Yu was standing next to Yunjian, Tulig had never associated Yunjian with his Kosha mercenaries' boss, Slaying God. I am very good, but little girl, you. Something bad might happen. Tulig smiled savagely. He stared at Yunjian with a trace of cunning and cruel killing intent. No matter who this little girl was, she had to die. Tulig laughed sinisterly. He waved his hand and gestured to his men who were holding machine guns. The gesture was an order for them to open fire and kill everyone present, including Yunjian and Qin Yu. Just as Tulig raised his hand to give the order, a racing car flashed past them. The car was like a bolt of lightning that flashed past them and stopped beside Yunjian. Screech. The car's tires screeched loudly. Then, two people alighted from the car. One of them was tall and sturdy, and his strong body was nearly 2 meters tall. The other had a voluptuous body but wore a tight black shapewear. The former was Tiger. Leopard, whom Yunjian had contacted when she was reborn. The latter was Snake. Lizard, who had appeared not long ago. Chapter 439. The sudden appearance of Snake. Lizard and Tiger. Leopard startled everyone once more. She did not know who they were, but it was clear that Snake, Lizard and Tiger, Leopard, who had just entered the race, were not ordinary people, judging from how they drove past the crowd at lightning speed to get to Yunjian. It was especially so when they saw Snake, Lizard and Tiger, Leopard going up to Yunjian respectfully and calling her Sister Jian. Hua Meiling and the others were dumbfounded when they saw the scene. Zhang Ziyuan, in particular, had been interested in Yunjian. Until now, the shock that Yunjian had given him was no small amount. But she was clearly a traveler from country Z with Hua Meiling. How did she know those people? Zhang Ziyuan and the others were deep in thought with a frown. Tisk. When Tulig saw Snake, Lizard and Tiger, Leopard walking toward Yunjian and greeting Yunjian respectively, he was slightly taken aback. Snake, Lizard and Tiger. Leopard's current status in Kosha mercenaries was higher than his. Snake, Lizard and Tiger, Leopard were both in charge of Kosha mercenaries. In other words, the authority of Kosha mercenaries was tightly held in their hands. In spite of it, other than their status being higher than Tulig's, Tulig did not give Snake, Lizard and Tiger, Leopard any face. The Kosha mercenaries were divided into two factions in a hostile manner. One faction was Snake, Lizard and others who were on Yunjian's side. The other faction was Tulig and a bunch of old men who were dissatisfied with Yunjian and had once followed Kosha mercenaries' previous boss. Of course, other than Tulig, there were plenty of old men who had once followed Wuxia mercenaries' previous boss. Of course, even when snake, lizard and tiger, leopard greeted Yun Jian respectfully, Tulij did not associate Yun Jian with the terrifying woman, slaying god. After all, no matter how much a person's appearance changed, it was impossible to change the calluses on their hands as well. The young lady in front of him was sizing up Tulij's hands. Her delicate and smooth hands were not the same as slaying god's hands that were full of scars and calluses. What are you waiting for? Kill everyone. Since Tulij had decided to rebel, he would not turn back, especially at this critical juncture. He was prepared to fight snake, lizard and tiger, leopard to death. Ha! If slaying god were here today, Tulij would probably be terror-stricken. No one knew better than Tu Ligay how terrifying the woman named Slaying God was. Even when Slaying God took away Wuxia mercenaries, Tulij did not even dare to make a sound. Unfortunately, there were only snake, lizard and tiger leopard now. Slaying God. Therefore, Tulij wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to rebel. He even wanted to claim the entire Wuxia mercenaries as his own. Tulij's words made everyone present turn pale with fright and panic. The men around them were armed with machine guns. They could kill them instantly with a sweep of their weapons. At this moment, everyone felt the despair of impending death. Tulij, open your eyes wide and see who I am. How dare you act so insolently in front of me? Have you forgotten how Wuxia mercenaries fell into my hands back then? Just as everyone thought that they were going to die in despair, a brash and arrogant female voice rang. Following the gaze, they saw Yun Jian pulling out a butterfly knife and playing with it in her palm as she spoke to Tulij arrogantly. Watching Yun Jian play with the butterfly knife, Tulij's pupils contracted. The way she played with the knife was a perfect match for the terrifying woman in his mind. Chapter 440. Yun Jian's words not only shocked Tulij, but everyone present could not help but inhale sharply. The Wuxia mercenaries was a mercenary organization. Yun Jian's words were as clear as day. Yun Jian, who claimed to be the Wuxia mercenaries, had fallen into their hands from Tulij and the rest. Was she not the boss of the Wuxia mercenaries? The boss of the Wuxia mercenaries, slaying god? The group of people present was completely terrified and stunned. If 99% of the people present did not know Tulij, then who did not know the king of the Secret Service, Slaying God? Speaking of Slaying God, most of the people present knew her. Slaying God, she had once swept the world's newspapers and was even listed as the world's strongest female Secret Service agent. She was also the world's most dangerous person, an international 3S wanted criminal. There was once a reporter who jokingly introduced her in the newspapers. You're not far from death if you meet this person. This topic had been a hot topic for a period of time, so much so that some people still remembered it. However, no one would have thought that the legendary king of the Secret Service, Slaying God, the #1 Secret Service agent, the boss of the Wuxia mercenaries, was actually this young girl in front of them. This was too unbelievable. Everyone's fear did not affect Yun Jian at all. Yun Jian's eyes were fixed on Tulij, her fingers that were swinging the butterfly knife paused. No one knew why Tulij was so afraid of her. Of course, Tulij and the other old men were excluded. Back then, Yun Jian had only used a butterfly knife and a bulletproof vest to break into the Wuxia mercenaries alone and killed the previous boss of the Wuxia mercenaries. Her speed was so fast that she could catch up to a bullet. In terms of skills, Tulij and the rest of the old men were no match for her at all. However, Yun Jian could not touch them back then. This was because once the Wuxia mercenaries were in chaos, other mercenary groups would take advantage of the situation. Just like how Yun Jian had killed Su Zhouzheng, the boss of the Sky Bridge sect, she had only led a small group of men to subjugate the Flying Passage sect, which was in the midst of internal strife, without much effort. This principle was the same. Heh, old fogey, I didn't expect that after 2 years of peace, you still won't change your mind. You actually want to replace me. Yun Jian swung her butterfly knife and stepped forward. She was not the least bit afraid of the people with machine guns around her. She was not afraid of being beaten into a beehive. Yun Jian's actions made Tulej's eyelids twitch. Today is the day you die. Yun Jian's flat words sounded different to everyone's ears. Everyone present felt their hairs stand on end, and their hearts and minds tensed up. Especially Hua Meiling and the rest who had just interacted with Yun Jian. Their shock was indescribable. They had thought that Yun Jian and Qing Yu were just regular travelers. They did not expect them to have such terrifying identities. Tulej no longer hid his true nature after recognizing that Yun Jian was slaying God. He knew that once he was exposed to Yun Jian, there would only be two outcomes. Either he would die or Yun Jian would die. It was obvious that Tulej would choose the latter. Fire the machine guns and kill them. Tulej ordered his men who were armed with machine guns. This roar was very intense. However, Tulej's roar did not elicit any response. Tulej shouted again. Tulej finally came to his senses. He looked at Yun Jian with a terrified gaze and growled, "You, what have you done?" Chapter 441. Yun Jian spoke calmly, but it made Tulej and Sebaer who stood behind him shudder. What? What do you mean? Tulej's eyelids twitched as he glanced at Yun Jian in fear. I mean it literally. You can try if you don't believe me. See if they listen to you or me. Yun Jian crossed her arms and looked at Tulej fearlessly with a smirk. She had disappeared for half a year. Although she was in Longmen City, it was not as if she had not made any arrangements. She had not shown herself in the Kosha mercenaries in order to give Tulej and the other old men the wrong impression. Yun Jian was dead. In spite of it, Yun Jian had been planning to replace the men under the Kosha mercenaries with her own men. Yun Jian had not done it herself, but she had snake, lizard and tiger. Leopard. Snake. Lizard and tiger. Leopard were absolutely loyal to her. Yun Jian had been in Longmen City for the past few months, but snake. Lizard had been running around to recruit capable men. When Yun Jian had just taken over the Kosha mercenaries, she had already secretly replaced the men under the old men with her own men. Her actions were done discreetly and with snake. Lizard's efficiency, the old men did not suspect a thing. Just like Tulej, he only reacted when he could no longer order his men to obey his orders. You. Tulej instantly realized that something was wrong. He reacted quickly, but it was too late. If Yun Jian had killed these old men before, the Kosha mercenaries would have lost their status in the underworld for a while. Now, she had full confidence that she would be completely unaffected after annihilating this group of old fogies. Since you can't order them around, I'll do it. The corners of Yun Jian's lips lifted into a devilish smirk. In spite of it, Yun Jian's demeanor was even more terrifying to Tulej and his men. Especially after knowing that Yun Jian was slaying God, Tulej and his men dared not treat Yun Jian as normal anymore. Kill him. Yun Jian uttered faintly, maintaining a smile that did not reach her eyes. As soon as the order was given, the group of subordinates carrying machine guns immediately moved. The men aimed their machine guns at Tulej. Bang! 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 Then, a series of machine gun shots were heard. These people were really taking orders from Yun Jian. Tulej dodged the bullets in fear. Except for the group of subordinates carrying machine guns, they swept towards Tulej and killed the group of people closest to Tulej in seconds. Tulej was not weak. He was old, but he had been training, so he had a decent physique. Tulej managed to avoid being hit in the vitals of the machine guns, but he was still scratched. After a minute, other than Tulej, who was covered in wounds, and Sebaer, who was panting on the ground, none of Tulej's subordinates were still alive. Even the person closest to him was killed on the spot because he couldn't avoid the wave of machine gun fire just now. A minute later, Yun Jian gestured for them to stop. Tulej and Sebaer were not weak. They were not easy to deal with. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. She stood in front of Tullidge again and waved her butterfly knife at him in front of everyone. Since the machine guns can't kill you, I'll have to do it myself. Chapter 442. With the butterfly knife in her hand, Yunjian walked slowly toward Sebaer, who was lying on the ground on the verge of death, and Tullidge, who was in a sorry state. She held the butterfly knife in her fair hand, but her figure was slender. At least from the black eyes of Hua Meiling and the rest, her figure was clearly reflected. She was tall and strong. The current Yunjian was nothing like her previous self. The current Yunjian was like a demon from hell. Is she really going to kill them? Hua Meiling's horrified voice was heard faintly. There was a hint of shock in her voice. Aside from Hua Meiling, Zhang Ziyuan and Fan Weiwei, who had been looking at Yunjian with ill intentions earlier, were so shocked that they were speechless. Old man, do you have anything to say before you die? Yunjian spun the butterfly knife nimbly between her fingers as she looked at Tullidge and asked softly. Ha ha ha. Tullidge was in a sorry state after dodging the machine gun's barrage. Even the corner of his shirt was torn from the friction, but he was still laughing. After all, it was a barrage of bullets. No matter how powerful Tullidge was, there were still quite a number of bullets that entered his body. It was just that he had managed to avoid being hit in his vital parts. However, Tullidge knew Slaying God's ability. There was no way he could withstand Slaying God's attack. Slaying God, putting our grudges aside, you're the strongest person I've ever met in my life. But I, Tullidge, am not a weakling, and I won't let you kill me. Tullidge roared as he took out a silver pistol from his belt and pointed it at his temple. Bang! He ended his life. Tullidge's eyes widened as he stared at Tullidge. Tullidge's eyes widened as he stared at Tullidge. Ah! Someone in the crowd screamed when they saw that. Yunjian was even more beautiful under the sunlight. However, she was unfazed by Tullidge's death. It was as if an insignificant person had died in front of her. At that moment, it was as if she had returned to her past life when she regarded human lives as worthless. She pursed her red lips slightly and said softly to Snake. Lizard and the other two behind her, kill Sebaer and follow me back to the organization. Looking at Yunjian, who was surrounded by the crowd, Hua Meiling and the rest felt the distance between them and Yunjian for the first time. Zhang Ziyuan could no longer use the word shocked to describe his fear. He was thankful that he had not offended Yunjian's wrath. Dozens of kilometers away from Heifei Island, there was a hidden gloomy island. The island was very large, and the trees were dense. The large forest completely covered the buildings in the depths of the forest. If the sunlight occasionally shone down, one could clearly see that the walls of these buildings were imprinted with large and unique skull imprints. This was the headquarters of the Kosha mercenaries. Because Gusha mercenaries was hidden deep in the forest, it was difficult to be discovered. At this moment, a group of old men in their 40s and 50s were gathered in a large building. The crowds was Slaying God has been missing for half a year. I think she's most likely dead. Snake. Lizard and tiger. Leopard are troublesome, but as long as we work together, we'll be able to take back the Kosha mercenaries. That's right. Slaying God has occupied the Kosha mercenaries for so long. It's time for her to return. The group was aggressive as they plotted a conspiracy. It was because Slaying God had been missing for half a year that they dared to be so brazen. Otherwise, this group of old men would not have dared to do anything when Slaying God was still in the organization. Bam! Suddenly, the door was slammed open. Tiger, Leopard and Snake. Lizard were escorting a young girl as they entered. The girl tossed a package on the ground and chuckled. Elders, how have you been? I heard that you missed me a lot. The package fell to the ground and rolled twice on the ground. Then, the thing inside the package was revealed. It was actually a bloody head. Chapter 443. The Kosha mercenaries' boss, Slaying God, had never looked like her in her previous life. Even the Kosha mercenaries' elders had never seen her before. This was because Slaying God would appear with a different appearance and identity each time she appeared. She would not stay for long. However, all the Kosha mercenaries' elders and higher-ups knew that Slaying God's ability was not something anyone could compare to. Therefore, when Yun Jian tossed Tulaj's head in front of the elders, only one word flashed in their minds: Slaying God. Only Slaying God would be so insolent. Only Slaying God, snake, lizard, and tiger, leopard would escort her back to the Kosha mercenaries. Slaying God. One of the elders shouted in horror. Apart from snake, lizard and tiger, leopard, the Kosha mercenaries' elders were all helpers left behind by the previous boss. At the same time, all of them were old men who were constantly thinking of ways to kill Yun Jian. Clearly, these old men did not expect Yun Jian to return alive after going missing for half a year. Usually, there was only one outcome for those who went missing for more than half a year: they were dead. Therefore, even if it was the group of assassins and secret agents who were ranked at the top internationally, they would be automatically assumed to be dead if they went missing for a year. Their ranking would then be rearranged. Life and death, as long as one was on this path, no one could guarantee their life or death. Why are all of you so excited to welcome me back? I'm really flattered. Yun Jian scoffed. She led snake, lizard and tiger, leopard around Tulaj's head, which was now covered in dried blood, and walked to the front, where only the highest authority had the right to sit. None of the elders below dared to make a sound. However, at that moment, everyone's heart was in turmoil. Slaying God was not dead. Yun Jian's fingers had already grazed the long table and she slid along the table to sit on a stool. Now, it's time for us to settle the score. Yun Jian tapped her fingertips on the table twice and smiled. Her smile made her look like a harmless girl, beautiful and alluring. The group of elders was shocked. You joined forces with the Inferno Ring to secretly kidnap my brother. This is a generous gift you gave me half a year ago. Yun Jian's eyes suddenly turned sharp. As she spoke, she slammed the table and stood up. Her sharp eyes swept across the room. The Inferno Ring was the mastermind behind her brother's death in her previous life, but Yun Jian knew that all of this had something to do with this bunch of old men in front of her. Now that her brother had been reborn with her, this was Yun Jian's fortune. However, she, Yun Jian, was going to take back the torture her brother had suffered from this group of people, bit by bit. So now, do any elders have any last words? Yun Jian's sharp eyes changed. She lowered her eyes and looked at the elders as if she was looking at a group of dead people. Yun Jian was prepared to spill the beans upon her return this time. The pupils of the elders constricted. Finally, an old man who was about 60 years old stood out. This elder's name was Bubba. Seeing that Yun Jian had shed all pretense of cordiality, Bubba did not bother pretending. Instead, he grinned menacingly and said, Slaying God, we don't mind telling you that we've joined forces with various assassin organizations. We must have surrounded this place by now. Last words? We'll pass on our last words to you today. Since he had decided to spill the beans, Bubba took out a rescue device from his pocket and pressed the button. This was the device that he had requested for help from the other assassin organizations. Once the button was pressed, the Kosha Mercenaries Island would be completely surrounded by the assassin organizations that had been working with them and had been lying in wait for a long time. Chapter 444. Yun Jian's long eyelashes fluttered as she watched Bubba press the rescue button. She curled her lips into a smile. Oh. That's it? Yun Jian raised her brow and asked with a smile. Her tone was brisk and carefree. She did not sound panicked at all when she was in a disadvantageous position. Bubba frowned slightly as well, grumbling to himself. She was just bluffing. He had already formed an alliance with various assassin organizations and mercenary organizations. Even the internationally renowned assassin organization, and Hun Group, had agreed to work with him. He would like to see how slaying God was going to survive this time. Today, he, Bubba, would lead everyone to break her legend. What's slaying God? She was going to be destroyed by them in the end. So what if slaying God was powerful? Without any support, could it be that she could defy the heavens and fight against all of them by herself? I'll wait and see. Yunjian sat back on the chair calmly. She looked at the group of old men unhurriedly. Suddenly, a glint flashed in her eyes. A murderous aura emerged. None of the elders dared to move when they saw that Yunjian did not move. No one dared to doubt slaying God's ability. Among the group of elders before her, which one of them was not an internationally renowned figure? If an outsider were to witness this scene, the group of internationally renowned figures would be on high alert as they watched the girl sitting on the bench at ease. How shocking would that be? However, those in the know would not feel that way because the girl sitting on the bench was slaying God. Thud, 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 then, loud footsteps came from outside the door. Bubba was overjoyed when he saw Yunjian. His rescue was here. The elders were overjoyed. At the same time, they glared fiercely at Yunjian. They looked as if they wanted to swallow Yunjian alive. Bam! The door that had been closed earlier was slammed open again. After that, the people who entered through the door were the leaders of the various assassin organizations. Bubba and the others turned around excitedly and happened to see a group of people entering through the door. This group of people who came in were all the leaders of the major assassin organizations. Bubba proudly walked over and expressed his goodwill to the leaders of the assassin organizations. Then, he turned around and led the group of elders to look at Yunjian. His eyes emitted a vicious aura. Slaying God, come down if you know what's good for you. Otherwise, cough cough, don't blame us for being impolite. Bubba furrowed his brows as he looked at Yunjian. With the support of these major assassin organizations behind them, Bubba and the other old fellows instantly became arrogant. Heh! Yunjian pursed her lips and sneered. Behind him, snake, lizard and tiger. Leopard remained motionless. They only listened to Yunjian's orders. If Yunjian did not move, they would not move either. Okay. Slaying God, since you don't know what's good for you, don't blame us for being rude. Bubba grinned viciously and was about to join forces with the assassin organizations to surround Yunjian. Let's see who dares. Just then, a voice was heard from the door. Yunjian's eyes flickered when she heard the male voice. She turned around and saw Adam, dressed in a suit, walking in through the door. Clearly, he was here on behalf of the Inhun organization. Everyone present was aware of the Inhun organization's ability. They were more terrifying than the Kosha mercenaries. Therefore, everyone was filled with awe at once. Bubba walked forward with his head hung low and lowered his head respectfully at Adam. Master Adam, you're here? The strongest assassin organization he had invited was here to support him. Bubba cursed inwardly. Slaying God, you're going to die today. However, Adam did not even look at him. He walked around the crowd and came to Yunjian. He lowered his head and greeted Yunjian respectfully, young madam. Who was Adam? He was the person who followed the most mysterious leader of the Inhun organization. Since he was here, it meant that, suddenly, a tall man appeared at the door. He had dashing eyebrows and starry eyes. His sharp gaze swept across the crowd, carrying with it an absolute aura and the air of a king. I heard that someone wants to touch my woman. Are you ready to make an enemy out of the Inhun organization? The man sneered and strode forward, enunciating each word clearly. The most mysterious leader of the Inhun organization. At this moment, everyone's hearts were filled with shock. Chapter 445. However, the most shocking thing was what CE said. What did he mean by his woman? In an instant, a frightening and shocking thought suddenly emerged. Could slaying God be Inhun's leader's woman? The Inhun organization was known as the world's top assassin organization because it was so powerful that words could not describe it. Although the Kosha mercenaries were powerful, the Kosha mercenaries were currently embroiled in internal strife. How could a powerful organization be powerful without unity? At the end of the day, the Inhun organization had trained countless assassins and secret agents. These people had gained a foothold in the international arena. The Inhun organization, on the other hand, had the weapons and equipment to fight against a country. Under such circumstances, the Inhun organization was actually more powerful than the Kosha mercenaries. In other words, provoking the Inhun organization was far more terrifying than provoking the Kosha mercenaries. Therefore, after Siyi's words, most of the assassin organization members took a few shaky steps back. What a joke. Their assassin organization paled in comparison to the Inhun organization. Were they not digging their own graves? Looking at Ce, who was making his way to Yunjian, Bubba's aged face took on a solemn expression as his brows were almost knitted together. This was the leader of the Inhun organization? How could he be so young? More importantly, slaying God was his woman? The Inhun organization's power was beyond Bubba and the rest's imagination. However, the current situation told Bubba and the rest that either slaying God or they would die. They had no choice. Just as Bubba and the rest were overwhelmed with fear and had no time to think about what to do next, Ce was already in front of Yunjian. Yunjian slowly stood up from her seat. She stared at Ce and asked softly, "Why are you here?" Yunjian did not ask in a reprimanding tone. Instead, she spoke in a tone that said she was relieved that he was here. Ce's appearance made Yunjian heave a sigh of relief. To be honest, she was already prepared to fight to the death with this group of old men today. She wasn't completely confident. However, they were not completely unprepared. But even if she lost, she wanted to lose in a glorious way. In spite of it, Ce's arrival gave her a feeling that came from the bottom of her heart. It was as if as long as he was here, everything could be relaxed. "I'm here to help you," Ce pursed his lips, revealing a trace of handsomeness on his flawless face. These three ordinary words softened Yunjian's heart. No assassin organization would participate in the internal strife of other organizations unless it was profitable. Just like the assassin organizations that had come to help Bubba and the others. As for Ce, he didn't want any benefits, nor did he ask for anything from her. Just these three words touched Yunjian's heart. She had fought alone in her previous life and had been alone for 2 lifetimes. She had relied on her own strength to reach the peak of the world. Yunjian looked at Ce and nodded heavily. Tiger, leopard and snake. Lizard, who were standing in front of Yunjian, were equally stunned. Beep beep, at this moment, the communication device in Adam's hand rang. Adam hurriedly accepted the call. Mo Sen's calm but shocking voice came from the communication device. The 536 enemies on the nearby islands have all been annihilated. Mo Sen's voice came from the communication device. It was neither fast nor slow, but everyone present was shocked and terrified. What? Those 536 people, weren't they the people sent by all the assassin organizations to rescue Bubba? All annihilated? And one of the 4 leaders of the Inhun organization, Mo Sen, had personally taken action. It had only been a short while, and all 536 experts were gone. Chapter 446. The leaders of the various assassin organizations whom Bubba had invited to assist him stood rooted to the ground in fear. Dead. In order to help Bubba fight slaying God, these assassin organizations had selected the most powerful people in their organizations. However, they were now informed that the most powerful people in their assassin organizations were all dead. How long had it been? Fighting in Hun organization? This was the outcome. The assassin organization's representatives were horrified and regretful, but no one dared to say anything with Ce around. Their organization's strongest experts had been killed, which meant that their assassin organization would be completely paralyzed for a few years. So many powerful people had died. Each of these 536 people had been trained by the organization at a cost of tens of thousands of gold coins. That's 536 people, this was definitely a huge loss. Now, other than regretting that they had agreed to help Bubba and the rest deal with slaying God, the assassin organizations hated Bubba as well. If not for Bubba's invitation, they would not have suffered such a loss. After hearing the news, Bubba and the rest of the old men were completely devastated. An Hun organization had not made a move yet, but it was shocking when they did. Initially, Bubba had thought that he had gotten an Hun organization to help him take down the Kosha mercenaries. However, CE's appearance and Adam's words through the communication device had completely driven him into despair. They had lost. They had completely lost. They had lost before the battle even started. Forget about Yun Jian, who had an Hun organization's help. Even without an Hun's help, Bubba and the rest understood that they might not be able to defeat Yun Jian even if they joined forces with the assassin organizations. She was slaying God after all. Yun Jian's lips parted in a smile when she saw the despair on Bubba and the others' faces. Even though she had not won with her own strength, at least Bubba and the rest had betrayed her in her previous life and helped Inferno Ring kidnap her younger brother. She could finally avenge them. Looking at how happy Yun Jian was with her lips pressed together, CE wore a handsome smile as well. As long as she was happy, even if she wanted the moon in the sky, he would think of a way to get it. Mo Sen, who had spoken through the communicator, quickly led a group of people from an Hun who were covered in black gauze and rushed in. He walked straight to CE and nodded. "Young master, the annihilation is complete." "Yes." CE nodded lightly. He was standing in front of Yun Jian, and his hand was already on her slender waist. Pausing for a moment, his sharp eyes suddenly sharpened like a hawk's. "Kill everyone here." By everyone, he was referring to Bubba and the others, including the people from the assassin organization. The reason was simple. Since they knew that he was the leader of an Hun, they had to die. "Yes." Mo Sen nodded and then extended his hand to instruct the group of men who were covered in black gauze. "We were wrong. We promise that we will not find trouble with the Kosha mercenaries in the future." The people in charge of the assassin organization were scared silly and all of them howled. Since you know my identity as the young master, you have to die." Adam chuckled and was the first to rush forward. In an instant, the scene was filled with blood and flesh. Yun Jian naturally knew why CE did this. The fewer people who knew that he was the leader of an Hun, the better. He would kill anyone who knew about this. Yun Jian pushed CE's hand away from her waist. She pointed at the stunned snake. "Lizard and tiger. Leopard," and said to CE, "They are my people. They won't tell anyone about this." Yun Jian did this to prevent CE from killing snake. "Lizard and tiger. Leopard." CE, however, replied with a small smile, "I know. I know everything about you." Chapter 447. Yun Jian smiled with her lips pressed together when she saw CE's reaction. Her smile surprised both snake, lizard and tiger, leopard. What was even more shocking was how CE had addressed Yun Jian as, "my woman," without mincing words. Since when did their sister Jian get together with an Hun's leader? It was not a bad thing though. There was a reason why Adam and Mo Sen could become an Hun's leaders and follow CE all the way. Of course, the two of them weren't bad at fighting, which was an extremely important reason. The old men of Kosha mercenaries, including those from the assassin organization, were not easy to deal with. After all, they would not stand there stupidly and allow themselves to be slaughtered. But even so, Adam and Mo Sen quickly gained the upper hand and killed all of them on the spot after a brief confrontation. After completing CE's orders, both of them came to CE and told him, "Young master, they're all dead." The ground was littered with corpses, but Yun Jian and the others did not even frown. It was the same when they took down the Kosha mercenaries' previous boss, Kosha mercenaries. Things like this were nothing out of the ordinary for Yun Jian and the others who were in this circle. This was how the world worked. Winners were kings and losers were bandits. Losers were bandits. The weak deserved to die. There was no reason for it. Ce nodded slightly. Yun Jian turned to instruct Snake, Lizard and Tiger, Leopard that the Kosha mercenaries would be reorganized. Now that Buba and the others were dead, the positions of these elders were vacant. What Yun Jian meant was that anyone who was capable should be promoted. Yun Jian left the selection of people to Snake, Lizard and Tiger, Leopard. This period of time was enough for them to be busy enough. Yun Jian would send people to take care of the corpses here. Ce was currently holding Yun Jian's hand as they walked out of the forest. Both of them did not leave the forest but came to a more tranquil place. When they arrived, Ce smirked at Yun Jian. His tall figure almost covered Yun Jian's petite figure. Slaying God, Ce said faintly as he looked at Yun Jian with interest. Yun Jian looked to the side. She did not look at Ce but her heart was racing. She did not tell Ce her identity in the beginning. He did not hold anything back while she kept everything a secret. Do you know something? Yun Jian heaved a sigh of relief. She looked at Ce with a probing gaze. Ce suddenly leaned over to Yun Jian's face. He was taller than her, so Ce had to lower his head to touch Yun Jian's cheek. At this moment, Ce's breath was right in front of Yun Jian. He smirked and his handsome face became clearer. What do you want me to know? Ce suddenly teased. He lowered his head and probed Yun Jian's collarbone. This action caused everyone to feel incomparably bitter. Yun Jian blushed. Just when Yun Jian thought that Ce was going to say something else, he stood up abruptly and put some distance between himself and her. He paused and said, "Don't say it if you don't want to." There was a tinge of disappointment in his words. She did not come clean in the end. Even if he already knew the truth. Just when Ce turned to leave, Yun Jian's resolute voice was heard. "I was reborn. It was the sandalwood box that made me who I am now." Chapter 448. Ce was overjoyed when he heard her. He was not surprised by Yun Jian's rebirth, nor was he shocked. "I've known about this for a long time." Ce returned to Yun Jian's side. Looking at her, there seemed to be a warm current flowing slowly into his heart. His joy stemmed from Yun Jian's confession. He wanted to hear it from her personally because when she chose to tell him the secret hidden in the deepest part of her heart, it meant that she had truly acknowledged him. Now, Ce could confirm that Yun Jian had completely accepted him. Ce wanted to hug Yun Jian, but Yun Jian dodged him with a sidestep. She gritted her teeth and pouted at Ce. "You know? Then why are you asking me this?" It wasn't true anger, but rather a feeling of comfort in his heart. Other than Snake, Lizard, Tiger, Leopard, and Qing Yu who knew about her rebirth, Yun Jian had not told anyone since her rebirth. As for Ce, he was the first person she trusted completely and told him about it. If one were to ask for a reason, even Yun Jian herself would not be able to explain it. She had just told him and it was actually a relief to say it out loud. Ce walked over and pulled her into his embrace again without a word. This time, Yun Jian did not reject him. "I just want to hear you be honest with me personally," Ce said with a quirk of his handsome lips and a raised brow. Yun Jian, who was in his embrace, was speechless. Yun Jian and Ce did not delve into the topic. Now that the sandalwood box was involved, it was a more profound matter. With Gu Sha mercenaries dead, there was no one else in Kosha mercenaries who could threaten Yun Jian anymore. Snake, Lizard and Tiger, Leopard had quickly filled in the vacant positions of Elder Buba and the others with the candidates they had chosen earlier. This way, the Kosha mercenaries could continue operating. Yun Jian had kept a low profile when she returned this time. She did not expect to run into Seber and Tulig on Heifei Island. As for Hua Miling and the others, they had already been taken away. Yun Jian probably wouldn't be able to see her again in this lifetime. Sometimes, life was just like that. You would meet some people you got along well with on your journey, but once you said goodbye, it would be a lifetime. After dealing with the Kosha mercenaries, Yun Jian could finally relax. Now, the management of the Kosha mercenaries would be handed over to Snake, Lizard and Tiger, Leopard. Yun Jian, on the other hand, brought Qingyu back to Country Z. However, on the way back, Ce, Adam, and Mo Sen, the three of them were extremely eye-catching existences wherever they went. Yun Jian could only hold her forehead and sigh softly. However, she couldn't chase Ce and the others away because she didn't want them to stay with her. Yun Jian finally returned to Country Z. Under everyone's gaze, Qingyu went home to watch cartoons as soon as she returned. Yun Jian and Ce went to pick up Xiao Yunju after class. During the winter break, Xiao Yunju did not have any classes, but Xiao Yunju was eager to learn, so he went to make up for it. At the same time, Yun Jian was holding Xiao Yunju's hand as they walked out of the tutoring station. Xiao Yunju was still holding Yun Jian's hand earlier, but when he saw Ce standing beside the Lamborghini waiting for him, he ran over to Ce with his short legs. Extending his hand, Xiao Yunju said without hesitation, "Brother Ce, you're back. You promised me that you would bring back delicious food for me." You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.